The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm back. I just know it. Like right when my face pops up here, I just could feel the disappointment that I have spread to everybody else. But Justin Kinner with you here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Happy Monday, everybody. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister in the producer chair. Already one show in today. Already, of course, taking care of business on Dialed In with Tom and Luke Brenneman earlier today. And then, of course, the tag team champions. We got Elliot Rearing and Jacob Tissett. Gentlemen, good morning. How are we today?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm doing great. It's a special morning today. It's beautiful outside.
I couldn't help but notice we got started at 10:11.
10:11?
We usually get started on time when I'm in the producer's chair.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's
more
right.
often than not.
Casey, any thoughts on that?
Any thoughts on that? I don't know. I just wanted it to be a nice – we could have started at like 10:07, but I just decided that I wanted it to be a nice – even 10-10,
Yeah,
so we
nice
can keep track of time.
Nice little easy.
I mean, what's
late
the
start.
rush? What's the rush? There's nothing to talk about that's gonna make you guys happy. I mean,
we gotta get to our ads. We gotta get to the YouTube ads. As many YouTube ads. Today was the first morning I drove my new car into work.
Very
How about
nice.
that?
You got a new vehicle, huh?
I did. The other vehicle, unfortunately, I was so angry with. I was trying to kick it. I was just kicking it and hitting it, and I'm just like, you know what? That's probably there's probably better things I could do with my time. So I went out and I got a new car and I drove it into work this morning.
Heat
Works great.
didn't stop at like red lights and stuff?
Nope, it stayed on the whole time, the whole drive here.
Holy cow.
wow.
Stayed on the whole drive
You
here.
would think that that's just the bar for a car.
Is it worse?
Both of those things weren't a guarantee for old Ellie for about the last, 3-4 months?
And the only thing he complained about was traffic coming
That's
in.
right. Well,
I like
the
it.
traffic was a much bigger issue because if you reach standstill traffic in a car that stops when you stand still, it presents a problem.
Oh yeah. So I also say this. My car still has the temporary tags on it at this very moment.
Nice.
I have the license plate where I could put it on it, but I'm going to see how many violations I can commit with the temp tag before I put on the real one. That way I can never get caught. For example, I went to Miami to work this.
How it works?
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I went to Miami to work this weekend for swimming. They give me a ticket. They always give me a ticket. No matter what I do for the University of Miami, no matter how many times I'm up there, I've received 15 tickets. But that's okay. I'm not going to get upset about it because they ticketed a license plate that's not going to be there the next time. So good luck finding me. They're not going to find me now.
You know,
Looks
I've never
you
been
won't
ticketed
graduate
at
from
Miami.
Miami.
Huh?
I guess you just won't graduate from Miami.
I guess
Yeah,
I
they'll
won't.
hold your diploma.
I guess I won't.
well, I can't remember which year of college it was, but the parking passes were so dang expensive.
Oh, yeah.
As they are at any school, obviously, even at Wright State. So there was one year where I couldn't afford to get the parking pass, and I got a ticket the very first day of class that I was there. But I noticed, the ticket was hanging like on the windshield or whatever. So that was my parking pass the rest of the season. Or the rest of the semester.
That's beautiful.
I took that pass and I took that ticket, just kept it in the front seat, and every day when I parked, I would just lift the windshield, put that ticket there, and every time the cop would just drive by thinking someone else had already ticketed it. Yes,
That's the best.
I was, in a dark place at that time. No problem admitting it. But I did get caught a couple days in jail, but outside of that, it all worked out, Bail was technically more expensive.
More than the ticket?
No. No jail time for old kidder.
I can't imagine you in jail.
I can't imagine me in jail.
I think that, but it would be very fun. That would be like a comedy. Like this guy goes to jail and he just annoys everybody because he's going to start making fun of their sports teams. That's what it would be. It would be
I pushed a button with you last week.
Well, no, I think you pushed it. Well, I think a lot of the chat was hurt, and I think a lot of us were hurt because I felt like you didn't really have to go full into the bit there. I think there was a little bit of a bit inside of your heart, and that's okay. We all like the bit. But at the end of the day, I think that if there was ever a game where you could complain about officiating, that was probably one of them.
So there's multiple layers to this. For years, I've been very consistent. And come to find out, that was a face mask. There was 3 face masks. They should have been called. And I've always been adamant that, and I've always got into it with Bengals fans, that a penalty in the fourth quarter or an overtime should always be called no matter what, just as it should be on the opening drive of a game. I've got into it with Bengals fans over the years because there has always been, and I'm sure a lot of fan bases do this, you can't call that there. All right, the Super Bowl, Cooper Kupp being held, where you could literally see the jersey be pulled. Bengals fans, it's the Super Bowl. You can't call that there. The AFC Championship game, Joseph Ossai shoves Patrick Mahomes on the sideline after he threw the ball away. You can't call that there. And I'm like, why can't you? It was an obvious, late hit. Week 2, the jumping over the back, the great game, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Bengals fans, you can't call that there. The game's on the line. Like, let the players dictate the game. And I've always gotten into it with Bengals fans throughout my entire time doing this, even Buckeye fans. I remember the Fiesta Bowl, I got into it with Buckeye fans many moons ago back in 2016 because they were blaming officiating. I said, now you let Clemson go on a 21-0 run. That played a role in it too. Justin Fields throws an interception. I never blame officiating in everything I do. All my sports teams, no matter what happens, I've never blamed officiating. So I'd get into it with Bengals fans over the years for that. Then on Thursday night, and I agree it was a penalty. Never said it wasn't. I just was agitated, so I pointed out the hypocrisy of now Bengals fans want that called there. What happened to wanting players to dictate the outcome of the game? I say all of that to say it should have been called. It was definitely egregious. It definitely played an outcome of that game. But it's definitely hypocritical to say you can't call that there for all those other scenarios that would have benefited you. But then here, where it would have benefited you to get the call, that's where I pointed out the hypocrisy.
I'll
That's all.
help. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
If you call penalties against my team, I'll be mad, and if you miss calls against my team, I'll be mad.
And now we all move on.
Yeah,
It's
I'm a hypocrite. I think most fans across all sports are hypocrites.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
My issue is that the NFL has a way to fix it, and they won't do it. And the way they call it, it's subjective. It shouldn't be subjective. That's why they're rules. They're objective. When something bad happens, you call it. That's why they're in the rule book. But it does seem like when you get to the NFL, it's subjective when they don't decide to throw the flag. So that's where I get upset. The referees were not the reason the Bengals lost that game. But you can get upset when flags aren't thrown when they should be.
We do have breaking news
Oh!
while we're on the Bengals. I'm
Whoa!
going to drop this in here before we can touch on it later in the show.
Is it good or bad breaking news?
Phenomenal, potentially.
Okay.
Something we've been asking for on this show for months, actually, by name.
Ooh, can I guess?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to guess?
Yeah, I'll
You guys
guess.
can guess.
Is Zach Taylor giving up play calling?
No.
Ooh, that
Nothing
would
Did
to do with
Jamar
coaching.
Chase get extended?
No.
Anaruma
Nothing
fired?
nothing that good.
Casey,
What you
guess?
got? What's one of your
the
guesses?
chat's already spoiled it.
Yeah, no,
so
the chat has spoiled it.
All right, give it to us.
The Bengals are hosting four-time Pro Bowl corner Xavien Howard on a visit today. So a potential free agent addition for the Bengals. Didn't really do anything at the trade deadline, but the biggest name in the secondary available on the free market, he's coming to Cincinnati for a visit.
Isn't he a bad guy?
Horrible guy, but he's been a
he-
good corner,
Didn't
so
he
I'll take
do
that.
something like very recently to make.
Oh
him-
yeah.
Yeah.
Browns
Oh yeah,
need-
real bad guy, but he can play corner.
The Browns need a corner too. I
He
wonder
would
if they-
fit in Cleveland. But yeah, no, not a great guy. Good corner at some point in his career, so maybe could help.
Yeah, I don't care if
That'd be
they're
nice.
good people anymore. I'm out on that train. Just be good at football one time. Just be good at football. That's all I want.
This season has crushed Elliot's moral compass.
Well, yeah, it's like, I mean, we got a team full of good guys, and then it's just like it doesn't matter
That's
anyway,
like the
so.
Badman major basketball team that at the end of the
Yeah.
year they're no good, but they tout the all GPA team, and I'm like, nobody cares
Yeah.
about how smart your team is. I will take a dumb team that's good at basketball over a bad team that's super smart. I don't care. To be honest, selfish. I don't care what you do after basketball. I just like you don't care what I do after basketball or football. Just go win basketball games.
I agree.
I don't care if you read a book or not. Yes, Casey.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few thoughts on the Ravens penalty thing just before we move on
Yeah.
from that. The only some of the things I think about how he even got to that point to where he was able to get a face mask call or non-call on Joe Burrow is because Madubuike or whoever just completely blew up our offensive lineman, and if they were just a little off to the side and he hit the shoulder, then I mean we're not even having that discussion. So I mean the players have to play at some point. It should never come down to a penalty. I get that it ended up coming down to that final play, but we were up 21-7 at one point. Just handle business, take care of your assignments, and win the football game. The other thing too that I think that where I will come from here on out is I just want consistent calls.
Exactly.
Like you said. I want things to be called in the first quarter like they are in the fourth quarter. And I think I've been a little bit of a hypocrite about it from time to time, but I think it benefits you more if it's just called all the same way. And some plays are going to be ticky-tack, and I think you just got to learn to live with that. That final play, I don't feel like there was a lot of ticky-tack. I think there was a lot of egregious calls missed, but here we are at 4-6, and we still have a chance to make the playoffs. Easily.
Not just a chance, a very good chance.
A very good chance. So
we're going to get to that playoff picture coming up here in a moment. The ironic part of it all, and I go and I pull this up too, because if you go check socials, the Ravens were already prepared. Had they lost, they were going to blame officiating as well. Now, I don't recall a time where I've tuned into a game where the home team is just blasted by officials more than the away team. The Bengals were actually pretty clean penalty-wise. I think only 3 penalties on the night.
I mean, that whole drive, they had like 5 penalties in a row that helped the Bengals get to that point.
2 15-yarders. There was 11 penalties, I believe, for 85 yards against Baltimore. And I'm not defending Baltimore. I'm just saying, like, I'm laughing at Ravens fans who said that, Bengals fans are upset about officiating. They got hosed all game. I'm like, but those were legitimate penalties. Like, there was some that Joe Burrow got hit late that they actually didn't call. Like, because there was one point where I think the officials are like, well, we can't call everything, because the Ravens were not very fundamental down the stretch. I mean, they were hitting Joe late pretty much on every other play. Every time he had time in the pocket, they were hitting him late. But no, I was like, hey, it wasn't even like one-sided. It was one-sided, but it was more against Baltimore than anything. That final drive, 2 15-yard penalties that helped lead not that the Bengals needed help offensively. I mean, they were marching the ball up and down the field to begin with. But either way, that one is behind everybody. But yeah, of all Fridays for me not to be on the show, I think it's probably a good thing I wasn't.
That's okay.
But shout out to Craig. Craig, want to make it personal? I can make it personal. I just want to make sure that the warning shot has been sent back as far as that's concerned. But anyways, all right, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. You are what your record says you are. We'll go down the list of the records of some teams throughout the NFL. Are they what the record says they are? Are they better than what the record says? Are they worse? We'll get to that. I know Elliot has NFL headlines coming up around the corner, and we'll dive into that playoff picture as well in the NFL. College football, most impressive, least impressive performances from over the weekend. The playoff picture definitely changed with 2 of the top 5 teams going down over the weekend. We have a lot more to get into. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister with you live here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. What did you guys do over the weekend? I mean, yesterday was weird. I'm not going to lie. I felt like, because the Browns obviously bye week, the Bengals didn't play. Was it a different vibe for you guys watching NFL yesterday? Like, you had a Sunday off since you had your what was that like? Did you just sit back and just enjoy football?
It's Jacob's heaven. I'm
Look,
sure.
I'll tell you this. I love the chat. I love Craig Sandlin. Great co-host for the post-game. Streams are a lot of fun. Man, yesterday rocked. I woke up like 10 minutes before the game kicked off.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not talking about the Germany game. I'm talking about the one. I don't need to see the Giants play the Panthers. I'm sleeping in.
I did that as well.
10 minutes before the 1 o'clock games, got up, carried my TV. My mom's out of town, carried my TV from my basement upstairs, had 3 TVs in my living room upstairs. Oh, 2 games and Red Zone. It was phenomenal.
I just watch every NFL Sunday. Usually, I just try to watch every game as I possibly can. Every single game, every ounce of football.
Just consume as much football as possible.
Correct. Again, I want to make it very clear. I did skip the London game.
Of course,
I did
Germany.
not.
Germany.
Whatever. Who cares? Honestly, who cares? Ship them overseas. They just ship the worst teams possible over there, and they can do whatever they want. I saw they were singing John Denver, so that was good. But Ed Hockley, did you see the call yet? That was pretty cool.
Quite the flex by El Hock.
Yeah, that was good. I saw that his dad did that before.
In Mexico City.
That's crazy. So good on him. That was actually pretty cool. But other than that, that game stinks. Those 2 teams stink. The Giants might be the worst team in the NFL. That was one of the Bengals' big wins. So, yeah, I think, look, if yesterday was just me watching football, I call that a success. I call that a Casey, you never watch football. Did you get to watch any football yesterday?
I watched some football yesterday. I actually watched the London-Germany game a little bit. That was disgusting.
It's not in London.
I know. I was just being funny. And then I watched the Washington Commanders take on the Steelers. Brutal call. The officiating was pretty bad on that spotting of the ball. I thought Washington should have won that game, but
I know.
I mean, here we are. I did not watch any of the late game stuff. I just spent time with the wife. So I watched the stinky game, and I watched the Commanders and Steelers. So I saw that the Lions game I probably should have watched because of how bad it was, and ended up being phenomenal at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 interceptions. That's crazy.
No, it was a fun one.
The big news of the weekend, we didn't even touch on it, and I'm sad that we didn't even get to open it.
No, don't.
Well,
do it.
I think it's important that as a Cincinnati sports talk show,
No.
we mention all the teams. And
yes!
unfortunately, on Saturday we lost a team. We lost.
So sad. I'm personally
FC
crushed.
Cincinnati has been eliminated from the tournament.
When they were
What is his deal?
They
What
were
is
at
he-
the top of the table from January 2023 until October 2024, which is the length of the MLS season.
One season, yeah.
And it didn't matter. They didn't try in the midseason tournaments because they were focused on the big one. That's what Casey told me all year long. All these little nothing tournaments, these tournaments that mean nothing, come rolling around. Oh, no, FC Cincinnati's going to rest all their players because they're focused on the big one. All right. We're going to win the President's Shield. We're going to go win the Cup. Well, they didn't even finish the 1 seed, and then they lost in the first
If
round.
looks could kill right now, that look by Casey, he's stabbing you with his eyes right now.
The worst part about it, it's not even that they lost. It's that the greatest player of all time,
He's leaving.
As Lucho Acosta said post game, that he's not going to play in FC. He doesn't want to play in Cincinnati anymore. He's been like crying for months
Yeah.
or something like that, and he's been very sad.
When
and
FC
it's just
Cincinnati
because
lost,
FC Cincinnati. And
it was the most texts ever sent in our group chat about FC Cincinnati by such a wide margin. I mean, such a wide margin. We were just piling on old Casey over there.
You guys are making me sad. Making
I
me
cheered for him.
depressed.
I watched the game. I watched it,
I
Casey.
said I was going to go to the parade.
All I did was try to. All I did was try to support him.
You stole my
Go.
parade.
And Lucho
You stole
Acosta.
my parade.
Lucho Acosta wants to leave.
You stole my parade, and now you're stealing my MVP.
Now what do we have? What do we have?
He's the best player in the city, better than Burrow and Ellie.
What do we have if we don't have Lucho Acosta? What do we have in this city?
They're currently exploring other options. Mouse Cop put it in the chat. Kevin Denke. I haven't really looked at any of those guys because I've just been kind of upset. I don't want Acosta to leave, but it's probably time, right? He's getting older. At some point, you have to make business decisions, and maybe he goes and plays somewhere else, maybe in a whole different league, because he probably is good enough to go to a different league. But FC will be okay. They will find players, and they'll still be competitive. This is a good franchise in the MLS. This is one of those franchises that's always done right by its fan base and its players, and will continue to do so. So I have no issues with him wanting to leave. I think it's probably for the best that he ends up leaving now, because I don't want his memory to be tarnished. He's been ran into the ground, a lot like guys like Sam Hubbard, how they had a pretty good career and they just were out there so much that they were kind of ran into the ground. That's kind of what Acosta is. So it sucks that we didn't get the right guys in there at the midseason point to help Acosta. I think we just kind of swung and missed on some guys, which stinks. That happens. But it just wasn't enough. We couldn't get over the hump. And if you lose in PKs and you lose because you missed 3 in a row, that means you deserve to lose. You deserve to lose if you can't make 3 in a row, or if you miss 3 in a row. So at some point, you just got to look at this team. They were bad for the last month and a half, 2 months. And that's who they were. They were just not very good. They were without their all-pro defender and Matt Miazga for the whole season. And they tried to make that work, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
they kind of did for a while. And
Who was that guy that punched another guy?
that
and
was
then he got kicked off the team.
that was
I liked him a lot.
You did. I can't remember his name off the top of my
I
head.
actually liked him a lot too.
I don't remember him. I don't remember him either.
It's crazy.
He was
to be
so-
bad
he was
for a
so
2
bad.
month stretch. You have a 2-month skid. And, like, it didn't matter because the season's 15 months long.
Yeah.
Like, you're still just right at the top, going playoffs.
It is a little bit ironic how they set up those playoffs because they do it like those best of 3 things to help the better seed. But I believe Inter Miami lost too.
Yeah, they lost
the,
too.
The Fighting
all the
Messi.
top teams. All the
Messi-
top teams lost. Columbus lost. Miami lost.
So we have
FC
there's
lost.
a playoff format error.
Correct. I think
Wow.
I think it's
This is
kind
a rest versus rust
Well,
scenario with no first round.
well,
bye.
it's also kind of silly. I get why they do it, but
This is a long soccer segment.
It honestly should be how the NBA
They did
does
have a
it.
bye, though.
It
Oh, they
should-
did have a bye.
Yeah.
So it
kinda.
is rest versus rust.
Well, no, but it should be how the NBA does it, where if the other team wins the first game, then you play the next game. You know what I'm saying?
Like the play-in?
Yeah, right? Isn't that how it works in the NBA?
Just the play-in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's what it should be for
yeah.
this because soccer shouldn't be a best of 3
I
series
think
anyway.
they should all be like the NBA, and the whole league makes the playoffs, and it's just best of 15 series. Because who cares? The season
technically-
might as well go longer.
I
Just like
agree.
the NBA, the players don't play during the regular season anyway.
That's right. Well,
Correct.
that's the thing, Kenner. That's the thing that gets confusing is you never know what's the regular season and what isn't. So a lot of times the players aren't playing, and it isn't even the regular season. But they had a regular season game on Tuesday and Thursday, but on Wednesday, it's the Lamar Hunt League's Championship Trophy Cup.
So is their season done or not?
That's
The
what we don't
the
know.
season is done.
And
Yes,
the good thing
FC
is it starts 2 weeks?
starts back up in
right.
February.
I think it's time for some headlines.
Well, yeah.
I think it's time for some headlines.
Headlines, and boop.
Boop.
And it's playing. You just can't hear it in the studio. Oh, wait a minute.
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
Yeah, so those are my 3 things. If you guys didn't hear just then,
I like proving that this wasn't a me problem.
correct. That was good. There are issues
That
with
helped me a
the
lot.
sounder.
Yeah, I think it's just the TV being
So
muted.
yeah, if you didn't watch any if you didn't watch any football yesterday, I guess we'll start with Sunday Night Football. The Lions, they beat the Texans 26-23. Jared Goff tosses 5 interceptions, 15 of 30, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jake Bates 2 massive 50-yard field goals to give the Lions the win. I think
But
he
those
said
2 kicks have been closer to the upright.
they could not have been.
And
He set a franchise record with one of them. So how about that? Jake Bates, the brick seller. He was selling bricks.
they said that
He
he
was-
was selling bricks in Houston a year ago 15,000 times.
yeah,
on that
but
broadcast.
it really helped. I think it helped the ball go through the upright.
I wanted him to clank one.
Yeah.
Because the brick tweets would have been through the roof.
It would have been so good. C.J. Stroud tossed 2 interceptions of his own. 7 interceptions in that game. 7 interceptions. Jared Goff can win football games, completing 50% of his passes and throwing 5 interceptions. Joe Burrow can't win football games, throwing for 9 million yards and 2 trillion touchdowns. That's how the Bengals operate, baby.
Good teams find a way to win.
That's right.
Bad teams find a way to lose.
I guess. The Dallas Cowboys, they get humiliated by the Eagles, 34-6. Very funny discourse after the game. We'll get to that. Hurts, 14 of 22 touchdowns and a pick. Cooper Rush, I had to double check this to make sure this was right. 13 of 23 for 40 yards. 13 completions for 40 yards before getting benched for Trey Lance.
That game was well out of reach, so I assume
Yeah.
you weren't watching anymore. But when they put Trey Lance in, did you see that whole ordeal?
I, of course, did not
So
watch
they
that
put
until
Trey
that point.
Lance in the game for Cooper Rush late. They were already getting blown out. I think it was with like 2 or 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Stadium erupts. Stadium erupts. Everyone wants Trey Lance in that game. They run 2 read options and pull him. It was just a little package. Cooper Rush came back in.
That's hilarious.
Then Cooper Rush was strip sacked. And to start
Oh
the
my
fourth quarter,
God.
Trey Lance came back in and played the rest of the game.
That is so good.
It was very fun.
It's like watching Texas football for a bit.
Yeah,
because,
it
you know,
was-
you go out. No, you go out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, you might have noticed that CeeDee Lamb dropped a touchdown, or I guess didn't drop it. It just never came to him because the sun was blinding.
Couldn't see it.
So Jerry built a stadium that blinds his own players. So how about that?
Yeah, no. CD was asked after the game if he would be in favor of curtains, which is a funny question. to
Very
ask a
funny.
player. Are you in favor of curtains? But everyone knew what it meant. Every other sporting event that gets played in there, other than the NFL, at least that's played during the daytimes, has curtains. So the sun's not a problem when soccer takes the pitch in AT&T or anything along those lines. But Jerry won't do it. And they asked Jerry about CD's comments about the curtains. Jerry said, "You want to tear down the stadium and build a new one?" Brother, he's just asking for curtains.
Very, very funny. They also asked him, so how'd you guys like the offense with Cooper Rush instead of Dak Prescott? Does this go to show how important Dak Prescott is? And what did Jerry say? Jerry said, have you been watching? We lost this one and we lose with Dak. What are you talking about?
We have breaking news.
Breaking news.
The Bengals are also working out running back Leonard Fournette.
Playoff
Playoff Lenny. You know what that means.
Playoff
Super Bowl
Lenny.
winning.
So we're gonna,
So we're going to cut
so we're gonna
the
cut
trade?
Khalil Herbert.
Damn. Herbert. I'll tell you what. Herbert's fumble that he recovered himself, that'll go down as one of the greatest plays in Bengals history. Good for Herbert,
They credited
man.
that fumble to Burrow.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
What a joke.
At least on the box score during the game they did.
What a disgusting league
I'll
we
double
play in.
check that.
They did during
So
the game.
It's Tom Pelissero who put that out just a few moments ago. They're working him out today. And, of course, they lose Zach Moss. They traded for Herbert at the deadline. Now they're checking out Fournette, who could join the practice squad as early as this week.
Playoff Lenny would get me hyped because you know what that means.
Yeah.
You can't have playoff Lenny and not be in the playoffs.
100%.
So if we sign playoff Lenny, buy the tickets now, folks.
Buy him now. Which, by the way, you are correct, Jacob. They credited that fumble to Joe Burrow. Khalil Herbert with the recovery.
That's right. So congratulations
see?
to Khalil Herbert for not fumbling his opening touch
outrageous.
and merely recovering it.
And
What a
Joe
bad
Burrow-
handoff by Burrow right between the 3 and the 4.
that he
Jeez
possessed.
Yeah,
for a good
he held for 2
seconds.
steps.
Okay, so we got to go to break here, but I'll read one more. The Chargers, they beat the Titans 27-17. Probably the best game the Titans have played all year.
Oh, yeah.
They scored a touchdown on a fumble that didn't end up counting. Callahan was very, very upset. But Will Levis looked good, if there was any positives to take away. The ball didn't go their way. Chargers' defense is pretty damn good, so whatever. But Titans, good loss. That's it for now. We'll come back, and I'll do the rest of it.
Sounds like a plan. We'll talk about the Chargers coming up because that's who the Bengals will be turning their attention towards coming up this weekend. But still a lot more to come out of week 10? It's already week 10 of the NFL season. Season's flying by. But this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. We've touched on it as it's been announced, but news regarding Leonard Fournette and help in the secondary for the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll touch on what that could potentially mean more coming up here just around the corner as well. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back. You know, you talked about the Chargers a little bit ago. I know
yes.
we got more headlines, and we're going to talk Chargers, Bengals more in depth. But, again, Harbaugh just doing a hell of a coaching job right now with this Chargers team. I mean, they put 27 points up, and Herbert only throws the ball 18 times. Efficient, completing 14 of 18, 164 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, they weren't putting too much on him, obviously running the ball 145 yards on the ground. But it's just wild to me. This isn't like an explosive offense, but they're putting up points. They're putting up points. Their defense is fantastic. Chargers are a very intriguing team out of the AFC, and we'll get to them more in detail. Obviously, that's the Bengals' opponent coming up this weekend, so we'll touch more on that coming up in a moment. But continuing on, Elliot's headlines.
Yes, the Chargers. By the way, I'm not out on the Chargers, but I don't think that team's going to be there just yet. I will say what Jim Harbaugh is going to do for the Chargers probably will save that franchise. I have no doubt in my mind. They've tried the gunslinging method with Herbert. Doesn't work, or at least it hasn't worked in the past. Doing it this way, just having an elite defense and having Justin Herbert play don't lose football, that's a recipe for success, clearly. So whatever. Keeping with the AFC West, the Broncos, they lose to the Chiefs on a brutal blocked field goal at the buzzer. Shout out to Will. What's his name? Will Lutz. Will Lutz missed it there. Mahomes 28 for 42 for 266 yards and a touchdown. He did not throw an interception again.
Wow.
First back-to-back stretch this season without a pick. How about
Impressive.
that?
Impressive.
How about that for Mahomes? Very, very good news for the Cincinnati Bengals, though. That couldn't have been better news because I thought for sure a Broncos win. I hate the Broncos. I hate the Broncos more than I hate any team in this league. They don't deserve any wins. Their quarterback stinks. They've got a decent defense, and outside of that, they've got nothing. They don't deserve wins. How they have 5, I'll never know. But saying that, finally karma went the Bengals' way a little bit yesterday and the Broncos lose. The Bengals are fighting with two teams, two really bad teams for the final wild card spot. So I feel great after this weekend. But
I also take it all back. Take it all back.
Yeah.
Colts should keep starting Flacco. Just
Yes.
keep him
Yep.
out there.
Yep, we'll get to that one.
I was wrong.
We'll get to that
Anthony
one.
Richardson does not need help. Keep starting Flacco.
yeah, we'll get to that one. The Cardinals, they destroyed the Jets 31-6. Thank you very much, New York Jets, for this season. You tried your best. The Cardinals, by the way, remain in first place of the NFC West. That could be a division winner.
Who called that one?
You did, and then I stole it.
Well,
Kyler,
this isn't us.
That's right. Kyler, 22 for 24, 266 yards and a touchdown, adding 2 rushing touchdowns as well. The Patriots, they shut down the Bears, 19-3 the final score. They have now lost 3 games in a row, and their season is over. Thoughts?
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, poor guy. I will actually say, I'm not a Caleb Williams believer. This is not his fault. If you watched even clips of those games, it's not his fault.
No, it's been brutal.
The Eberflus, they started the Fire Eberflus chant yesterday at what's their stadium called? I should know it. Soldier Field. Mistake on my part. They started the Fire Eberflus chants. Very, very funny. I would say that if there's a solid chance that he is not the head coach by the end of this season.
No, they won't. They've never fired a coach in season.
Really?
The oldest franchise in the
that
history of football. They've never fired a coach in season.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then maybe not then.
They're more old school,
Than the Bengals?
stuck in their ways than the Bengals are. The McCaskies.
That's tough. That's very tough. The Bills, this is what we were kind of alluding to. They take care of the
Before you
Colts.
move off the Bears,
Sure.
Caleb Williams has the 3rd highest throw to pressure rate in the history of football,
Yeah.
trailing 2021 Justin Fields and 2023 Justin Fields.
Yikes.
So maybe it's an organizational malpractice.
So maybe the Bears were the problem all along, and it wasn't the quarterback. I would say that's pretty fair. The Bills, they take care of the Colts 30-20. It really, I give it a 30-13 victory. Flacco scored a touchdown at the buzzer when it didn't matter, but he tosses 3 interceptions and fumbled. Those interceptions and that fumble were all terrible. He's a bad quarterback.
I'm glad the Colts are a playoff team because otherwise it'd be pretty
Yeah.
embarrassing to pull your 22-year-old quarterback for this level of play from a 39-year-old. So I'm glad they've already locked up their division. They're in the playoffs. They're looking to win a Super Bowl this year.
I am very happy they're riding the Joe Flacco wagon. Keep riding them, baby. We'll see where that train takes you. Either way, and again, the Bengals needed 2 things to happen. They needed the Colts to lose. They needed the Broncos to lose. And we're going to get into the whole playoff picture in a second. But that's what you needed to happen. They both happened. It really couldn't have been a better weekend for the Cincinnati Bengals despite losing on Thursday night. It really couldn't have got any better. The only other thing that we would have needed on our wish list was the Chargers to lose too. But that really doesn't matter because with the 7-seed format, more than half the team, it feels like, in the AFC are dead already. And you're fighting with a terrible Colts team and a Broncos team that I just don't understand. So I love our chances right now. If you win on Sunday against the Chargers, all the way back in. But continuing on. The Saints, they hang on against the Falcons 20-17. Valdez-Scantling, 109 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 catches. 49ers, they walked off the Buccaneers 23-20 in the return of Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey had a hell of a catch. I will say McCaffrey did look a little bit slow.
It might be over.
It did look a little bit slow. It looked a little bit like the Giants' Peyton Hillis.
Okay.
He went to the Giants after the Browns.
I saw some people saying Toby Gerhart.
Toby Gerhart's a good one. It looked a little slow for my guy.
It wasn't pretty.
But if he becomes a wide receiver, then he can just go full out, just be a wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't know how that would go.
Well, you can give him a try.
He's going to be fine. The thing with the Niners is, like, obviously Christian McCaffrey's great. He's going to be better for that offense and take that offense to a level that none of the other running backs that they have can take him to. At what point is he no longer your 30-touch-a-game guy?
Yeah.
Like, do you start using him in some sets? Because you have Jordan Mason and Garendo and these guys that have looked really good running the ball this year. I'm not saying that maybe CMC just needs a week or 2 to get his legs back under him. This is NFL football. It takes a minute to get back up to speed. But, if it looks like it did this weekend, he might become less of a bell cow back than we've seen in his career.
The Steelers, they have won 4 in a row. They beat the Commanders 28-27. Brutal game. The question for you guys I have, was it a first down? Did Ertz get over that line?
Yeah.
I also don't fully understand when it is a completed catch. Because it looked like from the replay that Ertz had the ball, caught it in his hands, Before he made a move, before he landed on the ground, it looked like he had the ball over the line. But obviously, when the play goes on, you go down and you end up like a yard in front of it. But when is it when is it a catch?
I think that's always the question.
And nobody really knows.
And it's always the judgment call. Whatever they called on the field was going to stand.
There was no replay that was going to overturn it. So unfortunately, the Commanders did lose yesterday to the Steelers. Fine by me. It means the last week of the season might not matter at all. Steelers are good. I was wrong about the Steelers. Hand up. I'll be wrong about them. I'm not going to ever say I was wrong about the Broncos if they make the playoffs this year. I am wrong about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson, you were a little bit wrong about that one. Russell Wilson's been incredible. He's been incredible. The Steelers have been incredible. The defense has been unbelievable. And that's a team that's good enough to win this division. We'll see what happens when they start playing divisional games. Because, again, I don't think I've ever seen a team not play a single divisional game until, like, week 12 or whatever the Steelers are going to do here. We'll see what happens to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's my opinion that they are going to win this division now. I was wrong about them. Hand up. They're just good.
I was wrong about Russell Wilson on the field for sure. He's been much, much better than I expected. I was pretty much stuck on the 2 years ago Denver product.
His mobility is actually way better than I was higher on him than you. I didn't think he had that. Yesterday, he was scrambling left. They crashed him hard. He rolled back out to the right, extended a play, and connected with the receiver. I hadn't even heard of before Pittsburgh, so I was like, good for him.
He's been very good, but I think the best thing he's done this year is at some point he sat down next to George Pickens and got him to care about football.
Yeah.
Because that guy is really dang good, and he was not doing this last year or at the beginning of this season. Russell Wilson got him to buy in, and it's paying huge dividends for the Steelers offense.
So here's why I didn't buy in to Justin Fields initially early on. It was because of George Pickens. Because to me, this idea, like, can you win with Justin Fields? I think we all agreed that you could, but not winning at the level that you need to compete for a division and win some games in the play. So, like, Pickens checking out, that's him saying, yeah, this quarterback doesn't have it. Like, Jamar Chase is locked in because he knows he has a dude to throw him the football. I would love to see Jamar Chase's attitude if he had to play with a bad quarterback over an extended period of time, or at least a quarterback that strengths don't fit his strengths, and that's what him and Burrow have. But no, I may be a little too high on the Steelers right now, but I still think you look at the AFC, I don't think there's a more well-rounded team in the AFC than the Steelers.
I think
Based on what
agree.
we've seen the last 3 weeks with the way they've been running the football things too. That's been one of their biggest fixes as well. But the way they run the football, the way they now having a passing quarterback, a guy that, is he an elite passer? No, but he's making the offense click offensively in the pass game. Passing the ball, obviously running the ball, one of the best defenses in the league, and then one of the best special teams. I don't think there's a more complete team in the AFC than the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Their special teams is unbelievable.
Probably
too.
agree. Yeah, I mean, they should have had a beautiful fake punt conversion that was just dropped.
But continuing on.
Unbelievable. I only have one more. Jaguars, they have now lost 3 straight games by 1 score. They lose yesterday in the world's most disgusting game, 12-7 to the Minnesota Vikings.
Oof.
It looks like Sam Darnold is seeing ghosts once again. Sam Darnold, it was fun while it lasted. He had a great first 6 games. Probably not a guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl.
I won't do all the scores, but I'll touch just briefly on college football. The Big Ten is shaping up to be the winner of Ohio State and Indiana versus Oregon in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship.
Yep.
That Ohio State-Indiana game in 2 weeks in the shoe. It's going to be a great one. It's going to be a top 5 matchup. Indiana's 5 right now. Could certainly end up higher than that going into that game. So it's going to be a great one there. Penn State on the outside looking in of the Big Ten with 1 conference loss in the head-to-head down to Ohio State. So, I mean, they certainly have a chance, but it would require an Ohio State or Indiana slip-up before that matchup between the two, which is certainly unlikely. The most interesting storyline developing in college football is the SEC, because we are staring a 6-way tie in the face, and it's incredibly realistic.
Love it.
A 2-loss SEC tie, a 6-team tie is very, very feasible. It would require a Missouri win over Arkansas the last week of the season and Georgia beating Tennessee this week. If those 2 things happen and chalk holds across all the other conference games, it'll be a 6-way tie at 2 losses atop the SEC between Tennessee, Texas A&M, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
That would result in the winner of A&M versus Texas going to the SEC championship against Alabama. However, if Arkansas beats Missouri the last week of the season, then LSU with 2 losses would go ahead of Alabama despite the head-to-head win by Alabama.
Yikes. Yikes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All of that could be thrown out the window if Tennessee beats Georgia this weekend, because Tennessee only has one loss, because their other loss is no, they only have one loss. They're 8-1 this year. So Tennessee is looking at the SEC championship if they're able to take care of business the rest of the way. But they lost to Arkansas, so they certainly could lose to Vanderbilt, if not Georgia, this week. But absolute chaos coming into play. And then we're going to have the big-time question everyone's been asking all college football season: what happens to the conference championship loser? What happens when 10-2 Alabama loses to Texas in the conference championship? Now they're 10-3.
Yeah.
How do you rank them in comparison to 10-2 Georgia and 10-2 Ole Miss that didn't play in that conference championship game, didn't have that opportunity, but also didn't lose?
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting down the stretch for sure. I think both the Big Ten and the SEC are both going to get 4 teams in the playoff.
What if I would have told you back in August that the second college football playoff rankings, that the rankings heading into that would feature 4 Big Ten teams in the top 5?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't sound that crazy, but if I would have told you that it would have been Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 4, and then Indiana at number 5, and then when you have to keep going down, I mean, no Georgia, Alabama comes in at 9. Now, this is the AP. Obviously, the real rankings will come out tomorrow
night.
But the AP rankings right now, it's wild to see that Alabama's hanging on by a thread at number 9. Georgia's out of Georgia's out of the top 10. They're coming in at number 11. College football has been wild. I don't think that they're, like in years past, there's been that one dominant team. I don't think that team exists. I know Oregon's 10-0. I know they're very good. They beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think that parity across the board, I mean, Indiana's the only team I'm looking at right now, BYU in that top 5, top 6, where I'm like, everyone else is pretty damn even. I don't know who Indiana is right now.
Yeah.
They're way better than what we thought, but again, I still think there could potentially be a gap between them and Ohio State. We'll find out in 2 weeks.
We'll see what happens in that game for sure. That'll tell us everything we need to know about Indiana. And I think for a lot of people, it'll tell them what they need to know about Ohio State as well. A lot of people downplaying the Penn State win because of what Penn State is every single year, the 10-2 losing to Ohio State and Michigan, and that's fine. So I assume people will do the same thing with the Indiana win just because of the brand, if Ohio State is able to take care of business there. But if you can beat 2 top 5 teams, one on the road, one at home, I'm going to feel really, really good going into Indianapolis.
Yeah. By the way, if Indiana were to win that game, they'd be the second best team in the country, right?
Yeah, what do you do with them at that point?
I mean, they'd be. I think they'd probably be ranked number 1.
That number 1. Hell
Well,
yeah.
you'd have to, right? Because
Yeah, I guess so.
Indiana and Oregon have the same best win, and one is on the road and one's at home.
Yeah, that's fair. I love that a lot. Also, before we go, this is the final mention. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Kinner.
I thought we weren't going to do this until they lost.
I know, but they're 11-0. They're 11-0.
They are rolling early.
105-100. They beat the Nets on Saturday.
You know, it's amazing what happens when you have athletes who give a damn.
Yep.
When you have guys who are playing hard every single night, who aren't going out there and saying, we don't need to play hard in November. We'll pick it up in February and March. This is what you get. The Cavs are a great story. They're not getting all the love and attention, but they just destroyed the Golden State Warriors the other night. And I don't think this is just a little hot streak to open up the season. I think, obviously, Boston, that's the team to beat. In the East, I think the Cavs, they check off every box. But again,
They're going to win 70 games, get the 1 seed, and get swept in the second round by the
yes,
Celtics.
I also think seeding.
Well, I was gonna say they've already clinched this playoff spot. No, 11 wins in the NBA. That might as well be gold, baby.
You're gonna have,
You're an eighth of the way there.
they're going to have 3 months of load management.
That's right. You can afford it now.
No, right now, knock on wood, they're healthy. Their stars are playing like stars. By the way, we talk so much about teams, and I said this last week at the trade deadline on my show. I was talking about, I really wish that every time your team is bad, that the first idea in your head is, let's blow it up and get rid of everybody. It's like sometimes you just got to let stuff, kind of hold together for a little bit. The Cavs, and I was one of them, get rid of Jared Allen, move on from Garland, reshuffle some things, because that's what the Celtics had to do. But they stuck to it. They get a new head coach coming in. They kept Garland with Mitchell, and I think that was probably the best decision that front office made.
Yeah.
Everyone was ripping them. They didn't make hardly any changes in the offseason. They go get a new head coach, and what's his name? Atkins. What's his name?
Kenny Atkins.
Kenny Atkins from the Warriors. On top of that too. But no, they didn't make really any major changes outside of the head coach. They felt they had the right pieces in place. Kudos to them. We'll see if they can keep it up though, because 11-0 is great, but it's November. So.
It's very early. Real quick, we're going to send it to break real quick, but some guy named Jeremy in the chat keeps saying the Bengals are dead. Have you seen the playoff picture, brother? I mean, I guess that'll be a good segue. But the playoffs have never been more open, ever.
Jeremy smells bad.
I don't.
He smells real bad.
I mean, yeah, they're only a game outside, but them going after 2 veterans that haven't done anything. They've been sitting on the couch for months and not doing anything at the deadline. It seems desperate. They seem like they're a desperate.
Well,
team.
they are
desperate because I have bad news for you, Casey. We're desperate.
Well, yeah, I have no issue at all with being
I like
desperate.
them acting like they're as desperate as they are.
Okay.
They're just finally realizing
that's a
that
good
they're
thing.
in dire straits and they're
Oh.
doing something about it.
Like they shouldn't have been
just a
desperate.
couple weeks
and-
late.
Yeah, they're just like
It's
4
better.
weeks
What,
late.
what do they
but
always say? It's better late than never.
That's right.
Better late than
The
never.
only thing
That's
about the
fine by me.
NFL is that there is a trade deadline.
Wait,
so like
they-
you can't be that late, and we passed it.
Our
But
tr-
they're
our
doing
tr-
the best. They're doing the best they can.
We're
Man.
not even a week away.
How were they
removed
supposed
from
to
the trade
know?
deadline.
The trade deadline snuck up on them.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they were probably
They
going to
were
go
so
do
focused-
something.
They were so focused on the election results that they
That's
forgot.
right.
They forgot.
That's right.
Who'd you vote for?
Nice.
Who'd Mike Brown vote for?
Well, I think we all know. Kenner, I think that's it. Let's segue into the playoff picture next.
Are the Bengals dead? I'm not saying that. That's who said it?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Me and Jeremy probably could be friends, it sounds like. But, we'll step away for a few. When we come back, we're going to discuss that playoff picture because something we've been highlighting for a while. The reason, because you guys, and again, I'm the Bengal hater, right? For weeks, I've been saying the Bengals aren't out of anything. Like when you look at who they have to compete against, there's no way I'm taking any of those other teams over the Cincinnati Bengals in this playoff picture, and it's starting to clear up already. And it's basically the Bengals' final playoff spot to lose, as wild as that sounds. Something they don't even have in their grasp right now. We'll discuss that. Let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture when we come back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett. Happy Monday. We welcome you back. I hope everybody had a great weekend. We joked about it a little bit ago. Yesterday was kind of a weird Sunday. There was no Bengals, Browns on a bye week. There was, technically the Ravens play Thursday night too, so it's like I always pay attention. I'm always locked into the AFC North.
Yeah.
And obviously I watched Pittsburgh and the Commanders. I thought that was actually one of the best games of the weekend. But yeah, kind of a weird day yesterday with everyone's teams off from action.
No, it was. That's why we had to bust out the rooting guides, the old playoff picture rooting guides, and you had to know what else to watch. That's the best thing about getting this late in the season, already week 10, is you have the picture kind of set up for you, and especially with where the Bengals are at now. Obviously, it's not ideal. You'd rather be winning the division and getting the top seed in a bye or something along those lines, but yeah, we'll take it.
So let's take.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I was going to say, and Casey, thank you. Let's take a look right here at the playoff picture. Those watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. Take a look right there. There's the playoff picture.
Yep.
Obviously, you have your division leaders. You have the Chiefs, the Bills, Steelers, and Texans up there at the top. But where we have to follow for the Bengals is that 5, 6, and 7. Obviously, that second loss of the season to Baltimore. I still think, and you said it earlier, I think the Steelers have the North.
It's over.
I'll save you some time. It's not 5, 6, and 7.
It's just 7.
It's 6 and 7.
And I'd argue it's just 7.
I don't think so. I think you can catch the Chargers.
I'm for right now. I'm going to say 6 and 7. But if the Chargers win Sunday, it's just the 7.
If the Chargers win Sunday, I think it's done.
Like playoffs done.
I think the Bengals have to beat the Broncos and the Chargers.
See, the only reason I disagree is because I am that far out on the Colts. The Jets are dead. The Patriots aren't good. The Browns had a shot and they screwed it up. Like, even if the Browns looked competitive against the Chargers, I would still be quietly in the corner over here saying they're within striking distance. The Browns are bad. They're a train wreck. They are out. The Dolphins are out. The Patriots out. The Jets, Colts. So, Jacob, I want to agree with you that if they lose, it's going to be catastrophic reaction from everybody, no doubt. But at the same time, every team is bad there at the bottom. If the Bengals lose on Sunday, I will put them in the bad category. I don't think that they're bad. We're going to get into the you are what your record says you are. I think the Bengals are one of those. I think we'll all agree. I think they're better than what their record says, to be fair. But those others are bad. The Colts, the Browns, the Jets, the Patriots, the Dolphins, those teams don't have a shot. And I think just by default, the Bengals are just talented enough to backdoor into that final spot. But what you're wanting is you want them to definitively win it. That means beat the Chargers. That means beat the teams you're supposed to moving forward. Outside of the Patriots, to their credit, they've beat everybody that they're supposed to. The problem for Cincinnati is they just haven't beat that one team that gives you that confidence. I mean, they were one play away on Thursday night from finally giving the entire NFL universe that win, that like moment of, okay, we just beat the Ravens. We're good. Obviously, that's what made that finish so emotional on Thursday night. But, yeah, I think the Bengals, it's their playoff spot to lose. And I will say they have to try to lose that. I don't see a scenario where the Bengals don't get that final playoff spot. And that's coming from the ultimate Bengals hater, apparently.
The only thing that can save these other teams is schedule. That's it. But I will say the Colts and the Broncos do play each other this year. So that's a game against one of them. The Broncos, I'd argue, have a tougher schedule. They play the Falcons on Sunday. Then you get a little 2-week grace period with Raiders, Browns, respectfully. Then you have the final 4 weeks of the season, Colts, which is one of the teams, Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs. That's how they end it. Now, the issue might be the Chiefs aren't going to play anybody in that final game, so that could be a win for them.
Another issue is that someone has to win that Colts game.
Correct, but it also kills the other team. I think that's going to be the elimination game. Between one or the other. The Colts, on the other hand, their schedule, they play the Jets, which, again, the Jets are terrible, but the Jets can still win that game. I think the Jets are probably going to be favored in that game. I don't have the
3-point favorites.
3-point favorite. The Jets are probably going to win that game. Then you have the Lions immediately after. That'll be a slaughtering. Then you have the Patriots, good win for the Colts. Broncos, elimination game. And then the last 3 weeks are against terrible teams for the Colts. But I don't think the Colts are good. So that's the issue. We can sit here and say those are 3 wins, but the Colts are terrible. So that's where my rationale is right now. And here's the craziest part. I don't think 9 wins is the definite final win total to get you in. I think there's a chance 8 wins can get you in this year. That is how bad I think these final couple teams are. When you have an AFC picture where legitimately almost 7 teams. 7 teams are eliminated right now. 7. That's a huge number. That's a massive number. The Dolphins, 2 wins. There's 5 teams in the AFC with 2 wins. Or 4, whatever it is. 5 teams in the AFC with 2 wins. It's been a disgrace from the jump this year. And the Bengals at 4 wins, I feel better than I did heading in to the Ravens game. I feel fantastic. Because I do think there's a chance 8 wins gets you into the playoffs this year in the AFC.
If you're saying 8 wins gets you in, that means the Chargers aren't winning more than 2 games and the Broncos aren't winning more than 3 games.
Correct.
That's crazy. I mean, the Broncos' schedule, there's easily wins. I mean, Raiders, Browns, Colts, Chargers, Bengals. I mean, are the Bengals a good team?
Well, it's just what you think a bad team is capable of doing. The Bengals have shown this year, outside of Week 1, which is probably going to end up costing them, they've been able to beat bad teams. I think right now the Broncos are a bad team, so it's one of those things where if you think they're good enough to beat the bad teams, which maybe they are, and I'm not giving them enough credit.
You have so many bad teams on that schedule.
It's just the thing that kills the Bengals right now is that Chiefs game is not going to matter. That Chiefs game will not matter the final week for the Broncos. So if the Bengals are able to win this week, and then the Broncos lose to the Falcons, I will be all the way back. I will be more than all the way back. But I do not think the season is over if you lose. I don't think it looks good, but I think it's not over.
Fair enough. Again, you look at that playoff picture. I mean, I know you've countered to some of his points, but your overall view, Jacob, again, following how this has to unfold, you're not as high. I mean, it's not that you're not high on the Cincinnati Bengals, but like, where are you with the Cincinnati Bengals right now when it comes to this playoff picture? Because like I said, I know they have their deficiencies. There's a lot of things that are bad about this Bengals team, obviously, on the defensive side, questions about, the ability of the coaching staff. But overall, the Bengals have something that all those other teams don't, and that is a super elite strong side of the ball. The Colts don't have a strong side of the ball. Like, a lot of these teams, the Broncos technically have a good defense. They have that going for them. But some of these teams, they don't have an elite side of the ball. The Bengals do. I think that's enough to propel them over all those other teams, even with a dumb loss against the Chargers if that happens, which – we'll see what happens.
I just think the Chargers at 5-5, or the Broncos at 5-5, and the Chargers at 6-3.
Yep.
I think you have to win those games head to head, and I'm not even saying for the final win total. I'm saying for that when you're sitting there with the 8 or 9 wins, you have the tiebreaker, because those teams are going to get to 8 or 9 wins. The Chargers especially.
Yeah, the Chargers I've already written off the Chargers. I think the Chargers have the 6th seed locked. I don't think we're touching that.
If we beat them this week, we're right there.
I think we're right there, but I think the Chargers. I think the Chargers are probably going to take it. I think the Chargers are better than the Bengals as of this very second. And as of what are the Cincinnati Bengals? I don't know. I still don't know who they are. I know the Bengals can score at will. I know the Bengals have a quarterback that can score 5 touchdowns and for 400 yards. That's what I know. Defense is the worst I've ever seen. But if you had to ask any team in the NFL, do you want to play the Broncos, the Colts, or the Bengals? I know which team they don't want to play. That's a fact. So do I think the Bengals are some earth-shattering Super Bowl contender? No. But we're not talking about that. I'm talking about sneaking into the wild card, taking the final 7 seed, which is more than doable. More than doable. If you beat the Colts on Sunday...
Chargers.
Sorry. If you beat the Chargers on Sunday... Have I done that twice now?
Yeah.
Beat the Chargers on Sunday, all these C teams. If you beat the Chargers on Sunday, the season's all the way back.
I agree.
No, there's no question in my mind.
I agree with that.
We can sit here and stew that the Bengals aren't good. The Bengals, why even make the playoffs if you're not going to win a playoff game? That's not how I act. You want to make the playoffs. I want to see the Bengals play in a playoff game.
The point
That's
of
what I want.
contention here is just whether or not the season is over with a loss on Sunday night. That's the only point we disagree. Because I 100% agree that I'm all the way back in if we beat the Chargers.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think so. I don't think the season's dead. I don't.
I just can't get to the math losing to either the Chargers or the Broncos.
Because I think the Colts or the Broncos can both lose this week. That's why. So if they both lose also, then it's nullified. The week didn't even happen. Is how I look at it.
I think the Broncos are going to beat the Raiders, Browns, and Colts pretty easily. I think the Chargers game's a coin flip. I think the Falcons game's a coin flip. If the Bengals then take care of business, that means you need 9 wins to get in, beating the Broncos for the head-to-head.
Yeah, I think 9 wins is the magic number.
I do agree there, but I think unless you get to 10, you need the head-to-head.
Correct. No, 100%. 9 wins is the magic number with a win over the Broncos.
And Chargers.
Those 2 teams, 9 wins.
And we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
Here's the other thing. I think it was Sean Connor in the chat. Still have to play the Steelers twice. The Steelers, that final week might not matter as well.
I'm gonna say, and it sounds disgusting. We're huge Steelers fans in this room.
Yeah, we are.
Huge Steelers fans in this room. If they lock up the AFC North or lock up the 5, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as they cannot move in Week 18, we are in a really good spot.
Oh, yeah.
Really good spot. So we're big-time Steelers fans the rest of this way. Or the Ravens to win out and clinch this division before the last week, and the Steelers can't move from 5. Either way, that's fine. But those 2 teams need to be locked in, rock solid, where they belong, no chance to flip going into Week 18.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Like, let's go through the Bengals schedule. I know we do this all the time, but I'm going to do it again. Chargers on Sunday. Do you think we win that game?
Can you give me till Sunday?
Casey, win or loss? Chargers.
I'm gonna say they win just because I want to see the math on
For the sake of
this little experiment.
Okay. All right. Kenner, I'm going to imagine you're going to say loss.
No, I'm worried about this matchup only because every time Joe Burrow and the Bengals have faced a good defense outside of the Chiefs, they have not been good. Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, I know, like, from an efficiency standpoint, he hasn't been terrible, but they don't put up numbers against good defenses. They couldn't do it against Cleveland. They couldn't do it against the Giants. They couldn't do it against Philadelphia. They play Baltimore. I mean, you look at the majority of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase's stats. I'm not hating, but like I'd say about 40% of their stats have come against the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. And, of course, big numbers against Carolina, who's bad. When they've gone up against good defenses, that resistance has really slowed down that Bengals offensive attack. And I think now that the run game has gotten worse, maybe it gets better. Who knows what happens with this Leonard Fournette thing, as Herbert gets more comfortable. I'm concerned about how efficient will the Bengals be against the Chargers. I don't think they're going to look like against the Chargers the way they did against the Ravens. And I need to see the Bengals win a game against a team like the Chargers. Now, technically, they've done that against the Browns and against the Giants with good defenses, but the difference is even though I wouldn't put the Chargers offense as elite, they're facing a quarterback in Justin Herbert. What will Justin Herbert do against this secondary for the Cincinnati Bengals? This matchup I'm super intrigued by because, like, if they can't beat the Chargers, I have no faith in the Bengals being able to beat any good team the rest of the way. I don't like their chances against Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, which makes this almost a must-win on Sunday night because of that. So, and for a lot of reasons, as you've alluded to, I'm going to roll with the Bengals just because they've gotten through it. But, man, I think it's going to be an ugly game. But if Joe Burrow and the offense doesn't look good against this defense, I'm out on them as a whole because at some point you have to show that, hey, good defenses aren't going to completely just eliminate every single one of your strengths.
I think it's one of the worst matchups for the Bengals, just
I was
the
gonna
way
say,
the Chargers play football.
I agree. The next 2 matchups are brutal. Yeah. So I'm going to say it's a win, saying that there is no home field advantage when you play the Chargers. I do think you have to factor that in a little bit.
We might
have home field. I'll say
fans traveling.
Yeah,
it's prime time.
Yeah. I'll say this. I'm not ruling the Bengals. Has the spread come out yet?
1.5
3?
Chargers.
1.5 Chargers.
1.5 Chargers.
It was 2.5 this morning.
Love that. Love being an underdog. I'm going to take the Bengals to win. So in this example, we now have 5 wins. We're 5-6. You play the Steelers at home. I don't know what the injury status of Alex Highsmith is. I imagine he's still going to be out by the time we play. That ankle was crushed. So I don't know what that'll be. Saying that
They do have Preston Smith.
the defense is still elite.
Yeah.
The defense is still elite. I'm going to say the Bengals lose that game. I think that's a brutal matchup. So in this case scenario, we're now 5-7. Casey,
with
do you
you there.
agree?
I'll agree with that.
Okay, 5-7.
Yep.
You play the Cowboys, who don't have a team.
Win.
Have to
Unless
win.
the sun.
Unless the sun.
Which way are you going in the fourth quarter?
Well, yeah. Well, there will be no sun. That's a primetime game unless it gets
Okay.
flagged. So
Okay.
might get flagged.
There is no chance that game's a primetime game, right?
0%.
No, that's the Homer Simpson one.
So they
it
won't
has-
flex it.
Yeah, you have to flex.
Oh, you get Cooper Rush versus the 4 and 6 Bengals
Or Trey
on
Lance.
Disney Plus.
Okay, so we win that. You win that game. They're 6-7.
If that game gets, I know it can get flexed because
Yeah.
of the Homer Simpson stuff. If that game got flexed to 1 p.m., Cooper Rush would throw for 450 yards. But since it's in prime time, he won't. He won't go off in prime time.
6-7.
Trey Lance might though.
Trey Lance might. I think Trey Lance might be the starter there in a second. 6-7. The Bengals beat the Cowboys.
Win.
7-7 after you beat the Titans because you have to. I mean, we can't just. I mean, they have to beat the Titans. Browns 8-7, and then you have the Broncos and the Steelers 9 wins, and then 10 wins. No,
I think you win both those games, you're in. You lose one of them, you're out in that scenario.
I think if you no, I still think if you beat the Broncos and then lose to the Steelers somehow in that final game, you're in. I think
It would be really close.
You'd be asking for help.
Yeah,
You'd be
it'd
asking for
really
help.
You
close.
can't lose to the Broncos. You could lose.
You can't lose to the Broncos in that scenario. 9 wins, losing to the Broncos and beating the Steelers does not get you in.
Correct. That's true. 9 wins, losing to that. But again, they won't lose to the Steelers because the Steelers won't have anything to play for.
I hope.
So that's what the Bengals are working with now.
Yeah.
Man.
I can't believe they're going to be sitting at 5-7 though. That's what's going to eat me alive. Is that we're predicting them to go 5-7
And still get in.
and still get in.
It's just how the AFC is shaking out. The AFC is terrible.
I was on the playoff machine over the weekend, and I found a few 10-7s that don't get us in, which is gut-wrenching to know that those are out there.
No, because that's not right, dude. 10 wins is a mortal lock. There's no way the Denver Broncos win 10 games. I will bet my reputation on it, which I
think the Denver Broncos have a side of the ball that's pretty elite.
I think that's fine. I think they've got a decent defense. I think Bo Nix stinks. I think he's going to turn the ball over when you need him in a big moment. So that's just at least my opinion as of this very second. And again, I'm not like you're fighting with 2 bad teams. I don't the Broncos.
We are a bad team.
Sure, 100%. There's 3 bad teams.
Right.
And we're the better of the bad teams.
That's what I'm not so sure
You're
I'm
the
willing to
tallest
say.
short person.
Correct.
And that's what I mean. I don't know. I don't know. I think the Bengals have a quarterback and a wide receiver and an edge rusher. And that's it.
Let's go. 3 versus the world. That's fine by me.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Bengals conversation here on where they lie based on the rest of the other teams in the AFC playoff picture is based a lot on what they've done in the past and not what they're doing this year. And it's the same for the other teams. I think the Chargers and the Broncos are being graded on what they've done in the past and not necessarily what they're doing this year. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see as it shakes out. These teams are so close, and they play each other, which is a great thing.
All of them play each other. Super Bowl odds real quick. I wanted to look at this, and I didn't get to see it before. I was trying to look at my phone. Hold on.
Use that as a tease. We'll
Okay,
pick up
all
with
right.
that. So you look that up.
Okay.
We got to step away for just a brief moment. We'll be right back. Again, appreciate those who are watching on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. Give the stream a like. We really appreciate that. On the radio side, we hope that, of course, by listening to the show every day, that you piques your interest. Tune into the show earlier in the day from 10 to noon on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, of course. But either way, we'll be right back. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. All right, and we are back. Right now, just kind of combing through the Bengals schedule and just really looking at the opportunity that presented itself over the weekend, especially with the Colts going down, the Broncos losing against the Chiefs. You look at the fact that the Jets have not lived up to expectations at all. There's just so many things that have actually gone in favor of the Bengals in a season where you think nothing can go right. There's actually a lot happening that's allowing the Bengals to potentially dig themselves out of a hole that maybe a lot don't have the confidence that they could do so. But when I look at this schedule coming up, I know you're looking at the Super Bowl odds. Are you looking at the Super Bowl odds for the Bengals, I'm assuming? Is that what you were looking at?
Correct. I have them right now.
What are we at as far as Super Bowl odds for the Cincinnati Bengals?
So if you want to go just by odds, the Bengals are plus 4,500. So 45 to 1 roughly. And it's you can say whatever you want about that. It's not very good. The teams in front of them, the Chiefs are the favorites right now. Lions are in second. Ravens in third. Bills, 49ers, Eagles, Texans, Packers, Commanders, Vikings, Steelers, Falcons, all in front of the Bengals. Teams below the Bengals, or at least at the same odds. The Chargers have the same odds to win the Super Bowl as of right now as the Cincinnati Bengals. The Rams right behind them, the Cardinals right behind them, Seahawks right behind them, and I have to keep scrolling down all the way down to find the Indianapolis Colts, who have a plus 10,000 chance, and the Denver Broncos, who everybody in this room at least Jacob and you, Kenner, and maybe a little bit of Casey is saying, the Broncos, man, they might not be that bad. Plus 18,000.
That's such a terrible way to look at the point you're trying to make.
No, but
no one's saying they can win a Super Bowl.
But I'm saying Vegas lists those two teams so far down below the Bengals that it's not even close.
No one's saying they can win a Super Bowl. The Bengals certainly have a better chance to win a Super Bowl than the Broncos. Do the Bengals have a better chance to win 9 games? I don't think so.
But I'm saying the Bengals, if Vegas factors in all that.
Two drastically different questions. I think the Bengals absolutely have a better chance to win a Super Bowl than the Broncos. Do they have a better chance to win 9 games? I think it's about a coin flip.
But winning a Super Bowl also has to do with winning the games on your schedule.
Right. But if both teams are right here to make the playoffs,
sure,
and one team has a much better chance to win the Super Bowl if they get in, wouldn't they have closer odds to win the Super Bowl? Yes.
I mean, sure, but I'm just saying, if the Broncos have a good defense and they're really good, plus 18,000 is not a good team. I might throw money on that, honestly.
Broncos are plus 190 to make the playoffs. Bengals are plus 125. Chargers are minus 480. Colts are right around there with the Broncos as well.
Chargers should be favored to make the playoffs.
So Chargers, according to Vegas, Chargers are locked in, and they're slightly favoring the Bengals over the Broncos and Colts right now.
The New Orleans Saints and the Denver Broncos have the same odds to win a Super Bowl. That's just wild to me. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. The Chicago Bears, same odds. Crazy. I'm just saying that the Bengals have a chance. That's all I wanted to make my point. The Bengals have an absolute chance. Like, season's over, Season's not over. Season's not even close to being over. So take a breath, beat some bad teams down the stretch, get to at least 9 wins, and you're in with a win over the Broncos.
I need to say something, too, about the Baltimore Ravens. Like, I can't believe they have that high of Super Bowl odds. Like, with that defense, they're not winning a damn thing. That defense is why they're in the spot where they're not going to win this division to begin with. The reason that the Steelers are going to win it is because they are the most well-rounded team. And I know we put so much stock into offense. I mean, I think the reason a lot of Bengals fans overlooked what could have been a lot of potential deficiencies with this team in the offseason is because everyone was so enamored by the idea of a healthy season for Joe Burrow along with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's what blinded everybody. And everyone gets blinded by that with Lamar Jackson. Everyone, I've made the comparison, and I think we've talked about this in the past, where everyone got so enamored with Lamar, who, by the way, I think this is the best season he's ever had, even including the 2 MVP seasons, because I think he's entered that elite passer level now. That's something that I think I did not believe was the case in years past. I think he's as well-rounded of a quarterback as he's ever been, and that includes a guy that's already won 2 MVPs. But the point is we're getting so enamored with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry that we're just totally ignoring the fact that this team is as bad as the Bengals defensively. Like, this team, to me, and again, if that face mask gets called the way it should have, obviously, the Bengals win that football game. We're talking about a Baltimore team that's 6-4. I'm sorry, but a 6-4 Baltimore Ravens team, if the only difference between 7-3 and 6-4 is a missed face mask call, that doesn't change the fact that their deficiencies put them in position to lose that football game to begin with. I have no faith in the Ravens to win a Super Bowl. I have no faith in teams that have defense as bad as that to win a Super Bowl. Make the playoffs, fine. But I'm not as high on the Ravens as what everybody else is, especially what I saw this past Thursday night. Joe Burrow's elite. Jamar Chase is elite. But there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to torch that secondary the way they've been torching the Ravens all season. You let the Browns look like playoff contenders a few weeks ago, and the Browns are not playoff contenders. Like, that defense is a problem, and it's going to bite them in the ass. I have no faith in the Ravens whatsoever.
You are picking the Steelers to win the AFC North?
Yeah, I'm locked
I'm on that
them.
train as well.
If I could get any value on the Ravens to win the North, I would hammer it right now. I mean, they're distantly the best team in this division. I think they're the best team in the AFC. I think they're absolutely
Even
good
with
enough.
that defense,
Yeah,
though?
yeah. I think they're absolutely
How?
good enough to win a Super Bowl because I think they can score 40 a game. I think this Ravens offense is unbelievable. I think they have the 2 best offensive players in football this year.
When it comes to the playoffs, and this is the age-old question, do you think defense or offense matters more in the postseason?
We sat here and talked about how crappy the AFC is top to bottom. Mahomes hasn't looked great this year. That Chiefs offense isn't what scares me, and I don't think that Chiefs defense can slow down the Ravens. The Texans, we've seen them slip up plenty of times. The Bills, I think we're going to talk about later in this show when we get to the records about what exactly we believe they are, and then we've spent the last 3 weeks talking about how bad the wildcard teams in the AFC are going to be. I don't think that defense has to be great until you get to the Super Bowl and you play the Lions. Or the Niners if they're able to get hot, or the Eagles whose offense looks really, really good right now, or the Commanders if they're able to get it together. That's when the defense is going to be tested. Yeah. Unless Mahomes can get it all together, or C.J. Stroud can get back to the level that he played at last year, or Amari Cooper can get healthy and the Bills' offense can mesh before the playoffs, that's a lot of big ifs. If none of those things happen, I don't think the Ravens' defense is going to be tested in the AFC. And once you get to the Super Bowl, you absolutely have a chance. So I think the offense is going to be good enough for them to roll through the AFC. And that's not necessarily a glaring review of them, as more of just a reflection of what I think about the rest of the AFC.
They do have some playmakers on defense for what it's worth.
That's the other thing is it's not like the Bengals when the defense is bad and we
Yeah.
point around and we're like, there's 6 guys on this defense that aren't NFL players. Like, they have talent. They have legitimate talent on that side of the ball. And even if Tre'Davious White isn't the all-pro version that he was in Buffalo, I think that veteran presence will help the Nate Wiggins of the world, those young corners, learn how to play NFL football a little bit more and probably get a little bit better. So I think the defense is going to get better. It's just the same question we have with the Bengals is, can it get to a level where it's good enough? Because it doesn't have to be the best defense in the world, but it can't be what it has been going through this year, because that's why you lose to the Raiders and the Browns and almost lose to the Bengals twice. So it certainly has to get better if they want to hold the Lombardi at the end of the year. But I certainly think they're a Super Bowl
I
caliber
also
team.
think there's been an issue with, not an issue, but there has been a game script factor here too. Like, they gave up 31 points to the Buccaneers. They had a 34, they had a, what, it was like a 41-10 lead in that fourth quarter, and the Buccaneers dropped 3 touchdowns. The Raiders, I know they lost the game. Defense certainly was an issue. Had a lead that entirety of the game, scored late. Cowboys, same thing, jumped out to a massive lead. Second half, they lose it. I'm just saying, like, it's not like the Bengals where it's consistently bad the whole way. Like, it seems to me maybe like when they go up, the defense kind of goes away for a bit, maybe takes a siesta. But as of right now, I don't think that the Ravens are a I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I do think that they are certainly a top 2 in the AFC right now. I think the Steelers win the division because of how good they've played so far, and I don't think the Ravens are going to catch them.
You can get good value on that.
Saying that,
I'm looking at
Plus
line.
250.
I'm more afraid of the Ravens than I am the Steelers.
See, and by the way, Ravens Steelers play each other this week too.
It's going to be an awesome. This is this week's NFL schedule.
There's so many big names. Ravens at Steelers. I use ESPN Bet, so ESPN Bet has Baltimore as a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Our theories will both be tested this weekend. Like, I think they'll be tested this weekend. I think that if the Steelers, who I think have a very good offense, I'll take the Bengals offense over the Steelers, but I think it's a very good offense, and it doesn't have to be elite because it's complemented by a great defense.
Yeah.
The Bengals offense has to be elite every week. No matter, they can't take a play off, they can't take a possession off because of how bad the defense is. So that kind of washes that out a bit, right? But like, if the Steelers come out and all of a sudden they look elite offensively against the Ravens, then I'd be 100% out. But
sure.
if they come out and that defense takes care of business against Pittsburgh and they get a win, obviously my theory's wrong, and obviously the Ravens will take care of that division. But I really like Pittsburgh. I don't like Pittsburgh. I hate Pittsburgh. I just really like the makeup of this team right now and the way that they're playing. And they just beat Washington. That's a huge win. That's over a very good team. They take that momentum into this matchup with the Ravens, and that'll have a huge outcome on that division and playoff picture too. But yeah, you're right, Jake. Chiefs at Bills.
Yep.
Bengals at Chargers. Seahawks 49ers is
Great.
huge too, because right now there's a lot more teams above 500. There's a couple teams that are 500 or above who are on the outside looking in. And we have all these bad teams fighting for the final spot.
Yeah.
It's like the Eastern Conference in the NBA is what it reminds me of. Colts Jets, you mentioned that's a big one for the Bengals. No one gives a rip about that matchup, but you guys do.
The Jets, everyone's eliminated the Jets already.
The Jets are bad.
But so are the rest of the teams fighting for the wild card spots.
but hear me out.
The Jets have better players than a lot of those rosters.
But hear me out. The Jets, like, they don't even look competitive. That's the difference. Like, the Broncos,
They
despite
just
what
beat the Texans in primetime 2 weeks ago.
I guess.
Texans team that just dragged the Lions for 3 quarters and then lost.
I guess. Listen, the other teams at least look competitive at some point during their games. The Jets have so many games this year where it just looks like they're done right from the rip. Aaron Rodgers.
But 2 against the Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams.
Sure.
Who's more garbage of a team, the Dolphins or the Jets? I think it's the Dolphins.
Dolphins are worse than the Jets.
Right. So there's 2 wins. You're at 5. Then you got,
2 wins.
Like,
I wouldn't say they're definite locks over the Miami Dolphins. I think they're better. I'm more afraid to face Aaron Rodgers in that situation than I am Tua and the Dolphins. But I don't know. It's going to be. Listen, I do think. The Jets play the Seahawks, loss. They play the Rams, loss. Bills, loss. How many more losses does it take? They're going to lose them all.
How did you say those are guaranteed losses?
Those are losses.
What if Aaron Rodgers goes back to 2021?
Yeah, what if I was a millionaire? Then I wouldn't work here. So it's just like I don't know. That's just the way. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And I think that cookie has been eaten and it's been stepped on by the Cookie Monster. So that's what it is. The Bengals are facing 2 other teams: the Colts, who suck, and the Denver Broncos, who also suck. Bengals, do they suck? Probably, but that's the way it is.
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We'll have college football and basketball stuff on tomorrow's show. We're going to close out the radio side with some NFL because we just haven't spent enough time on the NFL today when it's all said and done.
But no one wants to talk about the NFL.
Yeah,
That's
NFL,
the thing is no one cares.
Nobody cares about the NFL. We need to talk about the other sports.
A lot of the views that you have today on this Bengals team with the playoff, that wasn't the case Friday, right? Like, what was the emotion like in here on Friday?
I was higher on the Bengals after the loss than I am now. Big picture wise, like right after the game, I think I was higher on this team than I am now.
Really?
Yeah.
What changed?
Just looking at the math and how it's. It felt to me like the Bengals looked better against the Ravens than I expected. So I was pretty optimistic coming out of that loss. It's a 2-game season between the Chargers and the Broncos, and that does not make me feel great.
I think I feel better. I feel significantly better now than I do. If the Broncos would have won that game against the Chiefs yesterday, different situation. Now we're in trouble.
You would have been shocked by the optimism on Friday. We were all feeling pretty good.
I think they played well. I think you play a pretty decent game. The issue is, and we all know what it is, we got half the team who's legitimately not NFL players, half the roster. So how can you fight through that? I don't know. Evan McPherson also being somebody that we can't rely on anymore sucks.
I had a little bit of a different take than that, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Take
I thought
it,
there was only 2 players on that field that were worth a damn. And that was Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's literally it. Not even I'm not going to give any praise to this offensive staff whatsoever. I heard you guys saying, like, this offense has been great for the whole season. No, it's not. It's been Joe Burrow playing hero ball. That was the whole game. Joe Burrow just running around the pocket and making amazing throw after amazing throw. You can't play within the structure of this offense. So even that side of the ball I have problems with. But that's just how good Joe and Jamar are, that I think if you just lean on them the whole rest of the way, occasionally sprinkle in some Chase Brown, and when he doesn't fumble the ball away, maybe you have something there. But
all they had to do was beat the Patriots. That's all they had to do.
That's all they had to do.
If they would have beaten the Patriots,
we wouldn't be here.
I think I'd say they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now.
They would be.
I'd just stamp it. Season's over. We're good. See you in January.
You know how easy it is to win 4 games of this schedule?
You know how god-awful the Patriots are?
They're terrible. They're truly
freaking terrible, man.
They're really bad, yeah. It's unfortunate.
They came in here with the worst quarterback.
It's just why I don't like Zach Taylor. I mean, the fact that we're not ready to play that game is a joke. All you have to do is beat the Patriots and everything's fine. But they didn't. So now we have to sit here and stew on it whether or not we're better than the Colts, who don't have a team, and the Broncos, who don't have a quarterback. Bo Nix has been better than what I thought.
What if the Chiefs stick it to the Bengals and throw that Week 18 game against the Broncos? Throw it.
I still think they will. I think they will throw that game.
Not locked up in the playoffs. Like, they have something
Let
to
me
lose.
ask,
They sacrifice, like, the 2 seed for the 3 seed
Oh, that would be
just to keep the Bengals out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. The Bengals
It
are the
would
biggest
be
threat.
smart.
The Bengals are the
be
biggest
smart
threat
on
to the
that
Chiefs. The 4-6 Bengals are still the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think I agree with that.
There's no other team that plays them like that. The Bills do, and then they lose. In
We'll see
overtime.
this week. I'll hold the cosign until this week. If the Bills can beat them this week, then
Well, I'll tell you right now, if the Bengals are in this game, they're fighting in the game against the Chargers, you lose by a walk-off field goal, fine, whatever. It's going to suck. I certainly have less optimism after that, but it's not over. If you get dog-walked by the Chargers at home, where they don't have a home field advantage, then I'll say the season's over. But if you win the game, oh boy, might as well be a Super Bowl championship.
Might as well.
Might as well.
hang the banner.
Hang it. Beat the Chargers
Got
in week 11.
to 1 game below 500.
Beat the Chargers. When's our bye? After the
After
Chargers?
the Chargers,
God, so many weeks.
it's flying by.
We're going to win the bye, though.
I almost guarantee you we will not.
We win the bye.
I almost
We'll win the
guarantee
bye.
you. Hold on, because I was looking at this the other day. I almost guarantee you we will not win the bye.
Who plays during our bye?
During the Bengals bye, which is week 12, the Broncos play the Raiders. We'll lose that game. Who else am I looking
I
for?
think
Colts Lions will win that game.
Baltimore and Chargers.
Baltimore Chargers, we could win that game. That could suck. Because if the Chargers win that game and brings the Ravens down to Steelers territory, and now they're fighting for the division, and the Chargers have it locked, man, that would stink.
That would be bad.
It's a big bye week.
It's a big bye week.
It's a big bye
Bengals
week.
are going to win that bye week.
I hope.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. You are what your record says you are. Or is that the case? We'll discuss when we come back. All right, final go-round here on the radio. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. ESPN 1410 Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. All right, you are what your record says you are. That's what they always say, right? Like,
That's correct.
the Bengals are, what we got their record at right now? 4 and 6, right? You're 4 and 6. You are what your record says you are. You have the Kansas City Chiefs 9-0. You are what your record says you are. How about Houston at 6-4? I mean, there's a lot of teams right now that, when you follow Houston Texans media right now, the sky is falling in Houston. They're a 6-4 team. The Bengals would kill to be a 6-4 team right about now. So sometimes the record always doesn't tell the full story. I know people say in the NFL all the time, well, hey, all that matters at the end of the day is that you get the win. I'm like, yes, technically, but there's still a lot of times where you get the win and you still are questioning whether your team actually is good enough to continue winning football games. You get games like on Thursday night with the Bengals, played a great football game, obviously, and for a good half, the defense, who has been the biggest deficiency, looked very good against Baltimore for a half. Obviously, there was a lot of positive takeaways from that game, but at the end of the day, the loss overshadowed all of that. But to Jacob's point, like, there were some great takeaways from that game that still make you feel confident that this team is still better than all the teams that they are fighting for those final playoff spots. But does the record tell the full story? We're going to throw out a couple teams in their record here, and we'll discuss whether or not they are what their record says they are. Let's start with one that we've basically touched on, and you've mentioned it before. Let's start with the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 5-5. At one point, we're 5-3. It was it just looked weird. The Denver Broncos, I don't think many people are high on the Broncos. They've lost 2 since then. They got beat down by the Ravens. They just lost barely against the Kansas City Chiefs. Should have been able to pull off the upset, but they couldn't get it done. They're a 500 team. They are 5-5, or a team that technically the Bengals are looking up at. Are the Denver Broncos, are they who their record says they are? Are they better than their record? Below their record? Who are the Denver Broncos?
I think they're exactly what their record says they are. A 500 football team, no more, no less. I think they have a really good defense and a questionable offense. When Bo Nix protects the ball, they win football games. I mean, even their losses, excluding that Ravens blowout when everyone was pretty high on them after back-to-back wins, they've been in all those games. A 16-14 loss to the Chiefs, a 13-6 loss to the Steelers, 26-20 to the Seahawks. They've been in every single game that they've lost. Bo Nix is protecting the ball more now than he did earlier in the season. I think the Broncos are exactly what their record says they are, an okay football team that has a chance to make the playoffs because the AFC is pretty bad. In a normal year, they're certainly not a playoff team, but because of what we talked about with these AFC standings, they could sneak in. I think they're exactly what their record says they are. There's no tricks going on in Denver.
I think they're a fraudulent team, and I think their wins stink, and I think they stink, and I think they're going to win 7 games this year. I think they're terrible. And the fact that they have 5 wins is a joke. They won a game with 10 points, 10-9 over the Jets, who also stink. They beat the Buccaneers. I don't know how that happened, but that happened. Then you have the Raiders. They took care of the Raiders. You took care of the Saints without players. You took care of the Panthers without a team. I just don't like – again – the Bengals are in a very similar situation. There is one big difference, and the Bengals have a quarterback, and they do not. So that's the difference. And I think if you took away Joe Burrow from the Bengals, I think the Bengals would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Maybe the worst team in the NFL, if we're going to be completely honest. If you took away Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow from this Cincinnati Bengals teams, I don't know if they have wins. They might not have any. So, but you do, so I have to factor that in. I think the Broncos stink. They beat good. They take care of the bad teams, which is bad news for us. So we'll see if they're able to continue that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they lost 3 in a row to bad teams. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So that's where our difference is, Jacob and I. It's just like I think they're capable of losing 3 in a row just because they're not good. I don't think they're a 500 team. I think they're worse.
Let's head over. Casey, you could jump in on the fun, too, if you would like. I mean, right now, when you look at the Denver Broncos, they're 5-5. You are what your record says you are. Are they better than the record says they are? Are they worse? Or are they about, like Jacob said, they are exactly who the record says they are, a 500 football team?
Well, I mean, they can't beat good teams. They only beat bad teams. And that puts them, like, smack dab right in the middle of the league, which would put them around 500, which is exactly what the record says they are. I think when it comes down to the end of the season, because they can't be exactly 500, I think they're probably an 8-9 team. I think that there's going to be a 1-game difference, and that game could be against the Bengals. I just don't think that they're all the way there yet. I think their offense is much to be desired. I think their defense is pretty solid, but they still have some things to figure out. So I think 8-9 is appropriate. I think that they're around 500, somewhere around there.
Fair enough. And obviously a big improvement from last year, and obviously doing this with a rookie quarterback. Let's go over to the NFC, a team that made a lot of noise early. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy goes down after they draft him, in top 10. That was the big controversy. Should they have selected him with the top 10 pick? Talking, of course, about the Minnesota Vikings. You have a veteran quarterback in Sam Darnold. I was out on him in the offseason. I remember us all kind of debating that. Then I had egg on my face for at least the first couple weeks of the season because he was playing at what many would have deemed an MVP caliber start. But right now, you look at the Vikings, they have not looked good over the last almost month, but they're sitting at 7-2. Yes, they just came away with the narrow win. They're 7-2. That is a fantastic record, but there are some holes. Who are the Minnesota Vikings? They are what the record says they are. Are they 7-2? Are they better than the record, worse than the record, or are they a legit 7-2 team, in your opinion? Where are we at with the Vikings, Jake?
7-2 would have them considered tied for the best, if second best team in the NFC. I don't think they're that good. I think they're a fine football team. I think they're a little bit worse than their record says, just because I don't think that they're on the same playing field as the Eagles or the. I know the Lions have one less loss, but on the same playing field as the Eagles or the Lions. I think there's a tier above the Vikings in the NFC, so I think they're slightly worse than their record would lead you to believe, and that does come back to basically the same conversation we just had about the Bengals versus the Broncos. It comes back to quarterback play, and when we're coming down the stretch here playing a 17-game season, I don't necessarily trust Sam Darnold to play at an incredibly high level all year long. The whole season or the whole offseason, I said that he was going to give them a chance to compete, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's keeping them in a position where they're going to be right there at the end and have a chance in the playoffs it certainly looks like they're going to be a playoff team, but to make a run once you get in. That's all you ask for out of a quarterback like Sam Darnold, is to give you a chance to get in, and it certainly seems like he's going to do that. I don't think they're a 7-2 football team. I don't think they're one of the best teams in the NFC, but I do think they're a playoff team, and I think Sam Darnold's made them that. So a little bit worse, but still a very, very respectable football team who certainly will take care of the teams below them, which is the vast majority of the remaining schedule.
Yeah, I think they're pretty damn close to their. I just think if you look at the record 7-2, I think that Sam Darnold's been good enough. He's been a system quarterback. in a good system. So that's all you can ask for. Aaron Jones, he got carted off the field. I know he came back. But if Aaron Jones goes down, I am a little bit concerned. I think he's been the unsung hero of that season. He's been absolutely incredible for Minnesota this year. And if the Vikings are able to win a playoff game, good on them. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but 7-2, I think they're able to win a playoff game. So I think they're pretty close. I think they're worse than what they are, but I think they're pretty damn close.
Yeah, the record's up there with some of the best teams in football. I'm not as high on the Vikings as others, mainly because they got out to that 5-0 start. They looked very, very good. They looked dominant to start because they were getting dominant play from Sam Darnold. They're still winning games. Like they won last week. Like they won yesterday, obviously, but they're not getting that same Sam Darnold that they were at the beginning of the season. So I think that they're worse than what their record says they are, just because I don't think Sam is the same guy that he was in the first 5 weeks. So I think that they're not as good as what the record says that they are, just based on how they've been playing as of late. Let's go back to the AFC. Let's go to a team that, honestly, if the Bengals do make the playoffs, could potentially be playing right off the bat, and that is the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills, kudos to Josh Allen in that offense. Is it as explosive as what it's been in years past? Absolutely not. Do they have the weapons that they've had in years past? Absolutely not. But Josh Allen continuing to win football games. They're 8-2. Are they an 8-2 football team? Are they who their record says they are? Are they better than their record? Worse than their record? Who are the Buffalo Bills?
I'm going to say they're better than their record, and they're 8-2,
Yeah.
which is crazy to say, but I think we're going to see it this weekend. I don't know which side I'm going to bet on yet between the Bills and the Chiefs, but I certainly think it's going to be a very, very close game. They're going to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. I think Josh Allen's playing some of the best football he's played really at any point in his career, because what have we always asked of him? What happens if Josh Allen does all this and protects the football?
Yeah.
Now he's doing it. And when they get Amari Cooper back and healthy and get him meshed in that offense, I think he is, even if he's not Amari Cooper, he's at the very least going to free up Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir and a lot of those other receivers to give them more opportunities, make life easier on Josh Allen. James Cook has been phenomenal in the lead back role. The defense is coming together a little bit over the last few weeks. I don't know how much of that was the defense and how much of it was Joe Flacco, but it certainly looked like a really good showing this past weekend against the Colts. I'm really, really high on the Bills, and I wasn't coming into the season. I think Josh Allen's phenomenal, and he's doing it week after week. I think the Bills are going to give the Chiefs an absolute fight this week and then win the vast majority of the remaining games. I think the 8-2 is probably a decent representation of where they are right now in the league, but I think they're one of the best teams in all of football.
I'm going to agree with Jacob. I think they're better than what the record says. They lost to the Texans. They lost to the Ravens in a blowout. But I'd argue the circumstances of that Ravens blowout was a little bit different. It started off with Derrick Henry gashing you for an 80-yard touchdown run. And from there, it was just you were playing behind the 8 ball. I think the Bills are scary. I think I wouldn't want to play the Bills if I was any other team. The Bengals own the Bills, so I wouldn't be afraid to play them.
That'd be where we go, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
As of this second. Yeah, because they would be the 2.
Because the
And then we'd be
Ravens and
7.
Steelers are going to beat each other up enough that they won't be the 2, and the Texans aren't that good.
Yep. I think the Bills are good. I think there's 2 Super Bowl contenders from the AFC. I think that's the Bills and the Chiefs. That's it. I don't think anybody else in the AFC is playing for a Super Bowl. I think the Steelers are good. I was wrong about the Steelers, but I don't think that team is a Super Bowl contender. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are a Super Bowl contender for the reasons you said earlier. And then you have the Houston Texans, who I still don't really know what they are. They kind of feel like the Bengals. It's one of those. I don't think they're going to go back to. I don't think they're going to win a playoff game. I think it's probably going to be a first round exit for the Houston Texans. I just don't think they have it this year. We'll see if Nico Collins can stay on the field when he comes back. But clearly he's vital to that operation. Joe Mixon's been great, but Joe Mixon's another guy you have to trust to stay on the field. He's missed some games this year. I think the Bills are scary. I think the Buffalo Bills are really, really scary, and that makes them the second best team in the AFC. And honestly, would you rather play the Bills or the Chiefs at this moment? I don't know. I think both of them are on the same level. I know the Chiefs are undefeated, but I think they're both pretty damn scary to play.
All right, well, we're out of time on the radio side. We're going to continue on with this for a few more moments, but we're done on the radio side. Appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us here on a Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. But until tomorrow on the radio, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Let's continue on. Let's throw. I mean, we just said Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh right now 7-2, sitting atop the North.
Sure.
You are what your record says you are at the beginning of the season, 4-2 with Justin Fields. If you would have asked me then at that point, I would have said no, they're not as good as what their record says they are. I would have been out on them, especially as we approach the back half of the season. To get to this point at 7-2, and you have yet to play the Ravens, you've yet to play the Bengals, you've yet to play the Browns. You have to play all three of those teams now twice over the back half of this season. That sounded more like a gauntlet. Well, quite a few months ago. It sounds like a party favor at this point for the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the playoffs not too far off in the distance. Who are the Pittsburgh Steelers? Are they what the record says they are? They're worse than what the record is? Better? Where are we at with Pittsburgh?
At some point, they got to just be what their record says they are.
I think they are.
Because if they keep winning games, they keep winning games. What more can you argue?
I can't say anything about the Pittsburgh Steelers any longer. The knock on them at the beginning of the season was Justin Fields, I thought, could play better, but even Justin Fields was playing decent. I would say better than decent at the beginning of the season.
I think the level of quarterback play required for them to beat the majority of teams in the league is so low.
I agree. I mean, somehow they lost.
They don't make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, somehow they lost to the Cowboys, but
But that was back when the Cowboys were debatably a decent football team.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. You crush the Raiders. You take care of the Giants. You beat the Commanders on the road. You blow out the Jets, blow the doors off the Jets. I still don't think we fully understand who that team is. We are going to know by the time what is that? By Christmas. They play on Christmas against the Chiefs. We will fully know who they are by then. I still think at this point we just know who they are. We know we can trust their record. We can trust their record. 7-2 is who they are, at least as of this moment, until they play the Chiefs on Christmas.
The craziest thing about this whole thing is we could have done this segment in March.
Yeah.
Hey, where are the Steelers at the beginning of November? Well, their record's really good. Their quarterback's not really wowing anyone, but the defense and the run game is solid, and they just play mistake-free football. So I guess they are good because they keep winning. It's every year for the last, 20 years? It's happening again.
Just a model of consistency.
Yeah.
It's a well-run organization.
So I'm way sold on Pittsburgh, as I said earlier. I think they're the best team in the AFC. I think they're the most well-rounded. My big thing we've seen them get off to hot starts in the past. They've always had a winning record, obviously, with Mike Tomlin. But in years past, they're doing it with all defense. They're averaging 18 points per game throughout the majority of their run. Their last 3 games since Russell Wilson's been put out there at quarterback, they're averaging 30 a game. And I've always said, with that Steelers defense, their offense has never had to be elite for them to go win football games, and that's been the formula. Elite defense, just good enough offense to, be dangerous. Well, now they're getting 30 points per game up on that board, and they're elite special teams on top of this defense right now. I think they are who the record says they are. Obviously, you could say that they're better, or you won't, but I mean, I'm not going to say that they're better. They're 7-2. They're leading the AFC North. They're right up there at the top of the AFC. I would take them over Kansas City and Baltimore right now. I'm picking them over Baltimore coming up this weekend. Maybe I'm too high on Pittsburgh, but I don't see any other team playing as good as they are right now. And Russell Wilson has gotten the most out of George Pickens, and I think that's been a big thing too that's opened up that offense. And of course, they go get Mike Williams, who scores a touchdown in his first game there too. I think people are hesitant to buy in to Russell Wilson. Maybe I need to be a little hesitant as well, but I'm going all in on Pittsburgh as much as I hate them. So
I think they're good. I was wrong about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out to me.
What about the Bengals? 4-6. I mean, you knew
they're better. They're better than the record. I think they're better than the record. I think they're a 500 team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. I do think they are better than the record because I do think they should have beaten the Patriots. So that's like where they have to be better. Because I know they should have won that game. So I think they're close. But they are 100% a better team than 4-6.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think the Bengals are exactly what the Bengals are. And they're a team that's fighting to make the wild card. They're a team that's below 500. They're a team that's drastically inconsistent outside of 2 pieces that are generational. And I don't think that there's anything left that we need to see from this team to try to convince ourselves that there's anything that they're not. Could they somehow – could the 2024 Bengals be a different version than the 2024 regular season Bengals, or the playoff Bengals be a different version than the regular season Bengals? Maybe. It's a new season once you get in there. We don't know what can happen. But when it comes to the regular season this year, the Bengals are a 4-6 team. They're not very good. They don't do a whole lot of things well. You have a quarterback that masks a lot of your flaws. Your O-line's one of the worst in the league. The defense is one of the worst in the league. The secondary is one of the worst in the league. The pass rush is the worst in the league. The run game is one of the worst in the league. I don't know how I could convince myself that they're better than that right now. I think this is exactly where they are and exactly what they've built this team to be, to compete for the fringes of the playoffs and hope that Joe Burrow can carry you to the promised land, which hopefully come this offseason, as long as the Bengals don't rip off a playoff stretch as the 7th seed and win a Super Bowl, hopefully this is enough to encourage the Bengals to change the way they operate.
They've only had one bad loss. They've had one bad loss.
They've lost to one bad team. I think they've had a lot more bad losses.
I think that, but like that's where like
Chiefs loss is a bad loss. Both Ravens loss are bad losses.
Sure, but I'd argue that those.
I would argue the Commanders loss is a bad loss.
Commanders might actually. I'll agree with you. The Commanders is a bad loss because they got blown out. 38-33 was not the accurate
And
score.
didn't throw an incomplete pass.
Correct. That's true.
Ravens loss, they muffed the hole. That's a bad loss as you get.
I think the Bengals won both Ravens games.
They literally did.
Yeah, but this is where my brain's.
But
so
that's
broken.
the worst losses.
I know, but this is where my brain's broken. I think I count those as wins. In my brain, I count them as wins.
Can I argue back that those aren't bad losses because those are both, like, Chiefs and the Ravens are top 3 teams?
I think when you win a game for,
I mean, like the way that the games went down, yes, they suck. Those were terrible.
I think both those losses are worse than the Patriots loss, because I know that's the one you're saying is the one bad loss. I think both those, the Chiefs and both Ravens loss, all 3 of those are worse than that loss, because that loss you just played poorly. The other 3 games you played good enough to win, and you fumbled it away at the end.
Sure, I guess I'm saying, like, if they had lost any other way, if they were to lose by 14 points to either the Chiefs or the Ravens, those aren't like.
That's
correct.
I
agree.
Those aren't nearly like the team themselves.
That's what I'm saying.
Losing to those teams.
We've lost to one bad team. We've had multiple bad losses.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Both those Ravens losses, I think, are the worst 2 losses of all time.
We're power rank the AFC then. How would you power rank the AFC?
The whole AFC?
Yeah, just top 7. Top 7. Who are your top 7 as of this very second?
1 Ravens, 2 Bills, 3 Chiefs, 4 Steelers, 5 Texans, 6 Chargers, 7 Bengals.
That's where I would.
8 Broncos, 9 Colts.
It's exactly how I would have it. It's exactly how I would have it. So, and whether or not you want to say that's good enough or whatever, if you make the playoffs this year, it's not like a success, but it's not a failure either. So
it's the start of an opportunity. If you make the playoffs, it's the start of an opportunity to salvage this season.
Yes.
Because none of this matters if you get to an AFC championship. I'm not even talking about winning a Super Bowl. If you win 2 playoff games, who cares about losing to the Patriots?
Maybe even 1, especially if you beat Buffalo.
It depends on the one. And if you go into Arrowhead and you beat the Chiefs, I think the tune of this season's a lot different if you turn around and lose in the second round. I think if you go into Baltimore and you beat the Ravens, I think the tune's a lot different than if you don't. But I still think if you win either of those, if you win that first round playoff game, you turn around, you lose to a wild card team in the second round in Cincinnati, if you somehow get the 6th seed, or you go to a bad team that you should beat and lose, then that reopens the door for being upset about how this season ended, because then you talk yourself into having an actual chance. So the playoffs are going to be very, very interesting to see how it all shakes out for how the Bengals play, because I think who you play and how you lose is going to be huge to determine how fans feel about the season when it comes to an end.
Yep.
I know we've seen big games from the offense. Do you have any concern at all that a lot of the production of the offense is a little inflated against bad teams? And it's only my concern about, I mean, as good as Joe Burrow has been and as good as Jamar Chase has been, it's been against some of the worst defenses in the NFL at the bottom. Like when they were Joe Burrow and the offense was non-existent against the Giants, couldn't do anything against Cleveland. Philadelphia put 17 points up. Like their offense has not been good against good defenses, and you have to play the Chargers and the Steelers in the next 2 weeks. Like you blame the offense or defense for a lot of losses, but if the offense can't step up and play against the Chargers and Steelers coming up, I think there's a lot more question marks than what we initially thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to with this last Ravens loss is really the offense, the structure of the offense was not great. It was just Joe Burrow and Jamar playing hero ball. And by all stretch of imagination, they had a phenomenal night, right? I mean, 400 yards, 260 receiving yards. It's just like when they actually play a team that will double Jamar on every play and shade coverage his way, what then? the structure of this offense has not been very good. I think there's been a few games where it's been pretty good. I think maybe the first Ravens game, there was a couple plays that I thought were really good. That I thought the way that they were calling the game was great. Of course, we talked about the end of that game where Zach Taylor calls 3 plays that are run plays up the gut to settle for a field goal, and that ended up costing them a game. I think maybe the Commanders game is also one of those games where the structure of the offense was pretty good. But other than that, it's been a lot of hero ball in some of these games. Even the Raiders game was a lot of hero ball from Joe Burrow and blown coverages from the Raiders. So I just can't, I'm not going to say that this offense is a top 10 offense. I think it's a top 3 quarterback and a top 2 receiver just being unbelievable that's carried this offense and made it look better than what it is. And to your point, they feasted on bad teams and not looked great against good teams. So I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in at the moment. I think their best game of the season came against the Chiefs, and Joe Burrow fumbled the ball, and they just turned from there. And
Chiefs game is where I thought the Bengals were elite.
Yeah.
Even at 0-2, I was like, they're fine. Because the defense did just enough, and the offense was rolling against a very, very good defense. It's the defending 2-time Super Bowl champions. I just can't believe we haven't seen that Bengals team since. We have not seen that Bengals team. Actually, that's not true. We saw that Bengals team in the first half against Baltimore.
Yep.
That first half against Baltimore, that's the first time we had seen that maybe complete package of offensive rolling with complementary defense. We hadn't seen that from Cincinnati since week 2 against the Chiefs.
It's a lot of game script. This team is very dependent on game script, getting up early, staying up early, getting 2-for-1s, things like that. Maybe more than we realized in years past too. I think that the Bengals right now, when something goes wrong, when they have a turnover, it is just a complete flip of the switch, and they just completely shut down. And I don't understand why that happens. I don't understand why when games get close they just shrivel up now. Didn't used to always be that way, but here now, recently, in years past, the only way that they win ball games is if they get the correct game script, which is getting up by a touchdown, getting the ball back in the second half, and going and scoring again. And that usually is a recipe for them to win. It didn't happen against the Ravens this Thursday, but that's the Ravens and Lamar. So I don't know what to think of this Bengals team as of right now, other than Joe Burrow is phenomenal and Jamar's phenomenal. That's really it. There's only 2 guys that are making a difference on this team. Even Trey is just, he's not good enough to beat the top elite tackles in the league. So I don't know. Hopefully those 2 can just carry us the rest of the way. I want Jamar to be targeted 20 times a game from here on out. If they're not going to make the playoffs, I want them to just break records. Break Calvin Johnson's record. Do whatever you can to just make it fun.
Let me ask you this. How much money do you think the Bengals lost by not paying Jamar before this season?
Oh, a lot of money. They lost a starter or 2.
Well, what do you mean by lost? Because I don't think he's going to get paid any. I don't think they lost any.
$1 more than he would have got if he's signed.
We're on the same page.
I think he's going to get paid more.
It's not the right. It's not the right question. He's not asking the right question, because it definitely costs them. It costs them a starter. It cost them a starter or 2.
Are you saying
because
you
they
can't
didn't
roll the
spread
contract in this year?
Huh?
Are you saying because you can't spread it out for this season? Yeah, that's a fine way to look at it. He's not getting $1 more in annual value than he would have this offseason. Not $1 more.
But it did.
They offered him a $40 million contract. He's going to get 40 to 42, which is the same exact amount of money he was going to get this offseason. It's just you don't have the year to spread the cap hit about.
To Elliot's point, has he, from the talent level of Chase heading into this season, he would have got paid what he had done up to that point. He's playing above what he has done to this point, should ask for more, but just based on the market and how the Bengals operate, he's not going to get any more than what we just – and he'll get paid more than CD. He'll be the highest paid receiver in football.
Yeah, but he would have been last offseason.
So I don't know if you guys saw that article over the weekend where I guess it was uglier than many thought. We'll spend more time on that later in the week, but I guess it was uglier behind the scenes than we thought with that Jamar Chase thing, which I don't know how it could be uglier than we thought. We could see how ugly it was out there. I mean, he was out there for his teammates. He wasn't out there, though. I mean, who knows? I believe it's going to get done, right?
I think so.
They don't have another choice. Yeah. I mean, they don't.
So
what is the team without him?
They will not get it done. He will walk if they don't guarantee past year 1.
Correct.
He will not sign that contract.
Yeah.
So they have to change how they operate because someone, if he walks, will give him close to 50. If he hits the open market, he'll get like 46 to 48.
Yep. Whether it's Washington, whether it's the same players we've been talking
That
about.
would-
Those bad teams,
That would kill me.
Those bad teams with young quarterback. I guess Washington's not bad, but like the
Washington
teams
with Jamar
towards the
would be
bottom of the
insane.
league that have really good quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, licking their lips at the Bengals right now. You got two
Washington.
guys who are on their way out. Maybe
Washington has like 120 million to play with.
Patriots
next
have 195, and Drake May looks pretty damn good. Like those are two teams that are going to attack weapons this offseason.
Yeah.
The other concern too, that $40 million a year you give Jamar Chase, with all the question marks on defense, like those are going to be legit questions that the front office is sitting back saying, "Hey, with the money to keep Jamar, look how because like we're seeing teams. The Bills said we're going to take weapons away from you, Josh Allen, but we have to balance out this roster, and they're winning football games. Like the Chiefs, I'm never going to use the Chiefs as an example again. Let's just take them off the table. But like you look across the board, like at some point, it's like for the Bengals, I think you said, was it like a rebuild of at least 2 years, and not like rebuild as in them winning 4 or 5 games a year. But like I think the quickest way to turn it around, as silly as it sounds, and I know you won't agree, and I'm not even advocating them to do it, the quickest way to honestly turn it around is to tell Jamar, thanks but no thanks. We got to use this $40 million to fix holes all over the place. That's not where they're going. I don't think they'll do that by design.
I don't think they're as handcuffed with a major Jamar extension as a lot of people think. I don't think it's as bad. It's not great. It's a lot of money, but it's not as bad as a lot of people think, especially if you get decent draft capital for T.
They can also quite literally cut everyone that they signed this offseason and get $30 million back.
We have $8 million coming off the books when we cut Kappa because he's going to be gone. We have $6 million basically when we cut Geno Stone. We're going to cut Sam Hubbard, which is another 7. Like the Bengals are going to have a ton of cap space this offseason because you're going to move off of basically everyone you signed last offseason because it didn't work.
And then hope, and not trolling. Last year, though, that's what was thrown at me a lot. Look at all the cap space. Look at all the cap space. And they didn't. I mean, that's what Tom's point was at the beginning of the year. And I'm like, I wasn't worried about that because a lot of rollover cash, like you have to offset some of the stuff with Joe Burrow, and then obviously about to get something done with obviously Jamar.
The one thing that a lot of people don't talk about when we go to the all-in cap space conversation, why did the Bills have to tear down their whole roster this offseason and trade everyone away and get the young receivers and not pay anyone this offseason? It's because they went all in, and that Von Miller contract was horrendous, and it screwed them for about 5 years. That's why they were in this situation.
With the dead cap hits.
Right. Like if you play smart, sometimes it's not the worst thing to have $6, $7, $8 million in cap space going through the season. You just have to hit in the draft in the offseason, which the Bengals didn't do.
All right, well, look at that, 12:02, working overtime today. If we get paid for overtime, it's not taxed, right?
No tax.
Isn't that the rumor?
No tax, right, Elliot?
We also started at 12:10.
Oh, shit.
So
So
we're back to tax.
Damn it. Oh, well. All right, guys, have a good rest of your day. Appreciate you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.